All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend. It's great to be back. Sorry I missed a week last week, but happy to be back hanging out with all of you. And yeah, thanks for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'm going to give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member here on the channel. They always get that priority answering. If you'd like that priority answering as well, there's always a link in the description. But anyway, so I see also Cars. Thanks so much for rejoining the Matt Maran Motoring Club here. I really appreciate the support, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you tonight here. And I see we have Tanner, Brian, Wheatman, MDKN, Trend Car Guy, Kyle, Vishal, Cam Jam, Grand, and Jim. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining in. So let me see. First, I see the members here are saying, hope everyone had a good 4th. Likewise, hope you guys all had a good 4th as well. And MDKN says, woo, glad I was able to make it after a whirlwind of a weekend. Well, I'm glad you're able to make it as well, and I hope it was a good whirlwind, not a bad one. And Truck and Car Guy says, greetings from Glendale, Arizona. And Kyle, again, says hello. And yeah, Car says time for another great evening. And yeah, hope it's a great one here. I see Jim is commenting in Russian, I think that is. I don't know if Google will let me do like a translate thing on here or not. But yeah, but anyway, so yeah, it's not gonna let me translate. But anyway, Raphael, thanks for joining in too. And MD Kent says, howdy, Matt, glad to see you. V Mitchell says, had a good 4th, had a couple of 5ths also. Nice. Yeah, always a good time to drink. And Raphael says, no worries, Matt, we all need a weekend to get drunk with the wife. No, it wasn't that. Unfortunately, it was not a good weekend off last weekend. I would have been happy to chat on here, but unfortunately the prior week was rough. I don't want to really get into it, but thankfully doing better here this week, and so happy I'm able to rejoin. But Grand Admiral Thrawn, thank you so much also for joining the Matt Maran Motoring Club. I really appreciate it. I'll keep an eye out for your questions here tonight as well if you have any. And let me see. Spy Harpy says, Matt, send an email to you on this, but follow up on the Bullet I saw in San Jose with the unsure 50 Bullet plate. Saw this car and met the owner. Plate is 50 Bullet for a 50th anniversary of the Mustang. Owner is Kirby. Told him about you and he subs to your channel. It's awesome. Knows about your car and you selling it. Emailed you pictures. What luck to see the car again and meet the owner. That's awesome. Yeah, well, that's cool. You got to see a Bullet. It's always fun to see one of those. I also saw a couple of people sent me a video. There is a cop, I believe in Hawaii, that has a Bullet that apparently you're allowed to use your own personal vehicle or something. And so he's got all of his cop stuff in the Bullet and he's actually using it as a cop car, which is so cool. If you know about Bullet in the movie, you know, it's a movie about a cop. And so it's kind of the perfect usage case for a Bullet, honestly. He's doing it better than all of us. And it was really exciting to see that too. So thanks to those of you who sent that over to me too. And Good Stick says, burnt myself on my car. It's so hot outside. Yeah, it's been pretty hot here as well. I've been baking. I went to a Pirates game, Pittsburgh Pirates baseball game yesterday, and so I might be looking a little more red than usual. That's because I was getting toasted in the sun all day. But MD Can says it was a bad one, horrible day yesterday. Besides having literally like 7 or 8 of my car buddies over at my place for a cookout and had a great time. Well, it sounds like that part was good at least, but sorry it was a bad one otherwise. Like I said, I can relate. June in general is just crazy for me. I won't go into like a sob story, but I mean, there was, you know, those of you who remember earlier in the live chats from a few weeks back, you know, my neck was screwed up for a while and, you know, we had our refrigerator go out and then we had this crap happen 2 weeks ago. June is always the cursed month for me, but between like the 2016 was when I got sideswiped by the motorcyclist. That happened in June. The following year, when the tree fell on the other Mustang, or that same Mustang, that happened in June of the following year. And then the June since have always been like a little iffy with like either storms like being crazy and like knocking out power for a while, whatever the case is. There's always just like June is like not my month. So I'm very happy to be in July now. Hopefully all of the bad luck has been exhausted for the year, and hopefully you have better luck here going forward as well on BKN, but I can very much relate to to some rough times recently. And Cam Jam says, last time we were here, SLMD slept and passed out. Yes, I hope that he rejoins us here because I don't recall seeing a comment from him on the videos or anything either. So I hope that he's actually doing okay. Fingers crossed. And MD Can says, I'll have to send you a pic of all the cars scattered around the yard and driveway. That's pretty crazy. Sounds like a proper Fast and Furious barbecue. And FR8 says, I made it. Hello from Round Rock, Texas. By the way, FR8 is pronounced freight. Okay, like freight train. Gotcha. I've narrowed down my next vehicle for the new 4Runner or a new Land Cruiser. Enjoy your content. I'm so glad that you enjoy it. Thanks for watching it. And that is a tough choice. Anyone who's a Toyota truck fan, it's really a tough choice these days between all these different things that are so closely priced and do pretty similar stuff, just in different packages. And it's just, it's probably a tough decision. So, yeah, 4Runner, that drive will probably happen in, late end of this year or something. I'm not sure when, but judging how Tacoma went last year as far as the timing and stuff, I'm assuming, it'll be sometime like, end of the year, but we'll see. Could even be into next year or something, who knows. And then Land Cruiser, I will be spending a full week with the Land Cruiser here. Either, I think it's actually early next month in August. I'll be spending more time with the Land Cruiser. I'm not sure how quickly you're going to be buying here, but if you're curious for more thoughts, stay tuned for that on my thoughts on the Land Cruiser. I appreciate the heart too and the 100s. And Raphael says, you've been brutal the past few reviews, a new darker matte. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, I'm glad the way that it has worked out, because I mean, I like to think that I've always been that way, but it's funny how there's been a few reviews there back to back where I'm like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like, and again, maybe I'm being more bold with the way that I'm phrasing this stuff. I feel like I've always felt done the reviews in a completely blunt kind of way all the time, but I appreciate the feedback that people really enjoy the darker side of Matt. And yeah, that's the way I plan to, roll going forward. I mean, especially these days with how expensive cars have gotten, there is no excuse for stuff that's not screwed together well, like in the Mercedes review, or stuff that's not comfortable, or, things that, are just priced poorly. I'm really going to start being really, really strict as far as pricing goes in my reviews, and being like, if this does not measure up with the best stuff, I'm really going to slam it for that, because again, charging 43 grand for a WRX that should be, I don't know, high 30s tops is just, crazy. And just things like that, I'm going to really let them have it even more, I guess, maybe, and really, scrub some salt into the wounds there. But, yeah, I'm glad you appreciate it there, Raphael. And Grant says, late July is always bad for me. Fingers crossed it's better for you this time. But it's funny how, I guess, yeah, others have their unlucky times of the year. And so hopefully you make it through this one unscathed, Grand Admiral. And thanks so much again for joining in here and hanging out with us. And Jim says, June gloom is definitely a thing. Okay, well, then maybe it's not just me. That makes me feel better. I guess I don't want anyone else to have bad luck, but I guess I feel less picked on by the universe if it's not just me. And Freight says, I burned some sage end of August. Okay, I didn't know about that. I'll have to look into the end of August sage suggestion. Thanks for that. And Trucking Car Guy says, I'm just looking forward to fall. Been 110 and higher for at least a week now. Yeah, I'm sure it's brutal out there in Arizona. I don't know how you guys manage that day in and day out, especially like you were saying, you were in the heat a lot as well with your job and stuff. So that's, yeah, we complain around here when it's 90 something, and yeah, I can't imagine over 100 all the time. That's crazy. MD Can says, oh my God, yes, Fast and Furious style thing. We even had a Supra. Nice, perfect. Hopefully Donza Cadudro was played at least once during your barbecue there. He says, although it was the Mark V, that's still awesome to me. B. Mitchell says, maybe Slam Sedan is still looking for two in the basement. Maybe he got lost down there, or maybe two decided to somehow trade places with him, and now two is running around free and happy to enjoy his life tracking down Subaru X fan. But let me see. MD Can says he felt miserable yesterday, mid 90s in southeastern PA with dew points nearly hitting 80. And yeah, Trenton Car says he works outdoors most of the time there. Good Stick says that 2024 should have debuted the next-gen Corolla hatchback as it came out in 2019. Toyota generally has a 5-year product cycle. That's true. But same thing can be said for RAV4, which I believe actually debuted. I did the first drive of that in the fall of 2018, I believe. It was a 2019 model year as well. So, I mean, Corolla seems like maybe there's a little bit more time on that one. I would expect RAV4 next year. I don't know anything, but I would assume that, it would be next year, maybe even sooner. We'll see. But yeah, you're right about the 5-year product cycle, and I'm assuming they'll do those, fairly soon. Yeah, things might be a little different now. I think everyone kind of putting still, more money into other electrification stuff that may stretch some of these product cycles, especially since, Toyota's not afraid of long product cycles, as we've seen with 4Runner and others, so we'll see. They may keep them around longer. And like with the Corolla, they may also try and copy the same playbook as we see from Volkswagen with Jetta and, even Nissan, where, having stuff be cheaper and lower on the price spectrum, and just doing another refresh could make sense. Like we're just seeing for 2025, Corolla here is going to be getting the bigger screen with the FX version. Is that what they called it? That's coming out here. So I'm assuming if they're going to go to the trouble of putting that bigger screen in, that gives at least another 2 years. So I actually wouldn't expect Corolla next year personally. But, I think it's a very interesting new tactic with Jetta sales are super high this year, they're saying. And so instead of doing some new generation or trying to mess with it too much, so we have a pretty much carryover interior as far as other components we're familiar with. And, minor tweaks to the styling just to freshen it up a little bit. But, keeping it at that cheap price point is huge. And I was just reading this past week, sales are a big time for Mitsubishi Mirage, which I think I don't remember the exact username, but it's like TFIW or whatever is, I believe, a Mirage. And I'm probably very happy to hear that Mirage is shooting up, Versa is shooting up, Sentra. All of those cheaper cars are finally starting to pick up with their sales this year. And this is something I was saying for the past year or more now. I'm like, everyone's complaining about high car prices. Just look at what you get with a compact sedan these days. It's so nice. There's no need to go up to an SUV. There's no need to go up to, some higher, bigger thing. They're fine. And Mirage, I would say I would probably spring for something a little nicer than Mirage, but Versa is also it's still actually really nice. I spent a week with one a couple of years ago. I was like, you know what, this is actually really nice for the money and totally fine for, nice little, commuter vehicle. They're great. Tons of, great fuel economy. It's got all the tech you need and all that. It's great. So I'm really happy and feeling vindicated as well that people are finally being like, you know what? I don't need the SUV. I don't need the truck. I'm just going to go buy a compact sedan. And this is something we've seen also in other periods of recessions and things like that in the past. I'm not saying we're in a recession, but these times of inflation and things like that, where people are like, I need to cut back on my spending. Let me get something that's good on gas, that's small, that does what it needs to do. We saw this in the 80s with the huge popularity of hatchbacks. I don't think we're going to get that far, unfortunately. It'd be fun to see hatchbacks and small cars get truly popular, but all the small compact cars are having a banner year, it seems, and it's really exciting to see a little bit of a change from the buying behavior we've seen for years and years of just this arms race of everyone having something the size of a full-size truck, and that being the need that everyone has. I'm glad to see that people are starting to realize I can live with less. So that's great. And I see Slam Sedan has commented here, so he survives. I don't know if he actually took the 13 shots or whatever, but glad to see you here, Slamson. And we were worried about you, man. So good to see you here. I saw one of the newer Sentras and it looked pretty nice. Yeah, Sentras are great. I just did the review of one a couple weeks ago, and I love those. Let me see. So Mike says, hey, Matt, do you have the 2025 Civic Hybrid scheduled anytime soon? I don't. I'm hoping to get it scheduled soon, but they already have press cars scheduled for me into late August, I think, at this point, almost into September. I'm assuming it'll be scheduled soon for me, but not currently on the schedule. So I would say at the earliest you will see a review for me is September for the Civic Hybrid, unfortunately. And so, yeah, I'll get it posted as soon as I have a chance to get my hands on one, though, because that is one vehicle I know a lot of people are, looking forward to. And let me see. MDKN's asking if Slam Sedan found two. Yeah, I want to know too. Hope you've been doing well, though, Slam Sedan. And Kyle says the AMG GLA made me laugh. It sounds like an angry bee, so blunt and honest. I love it. Last thing anyone wants is an AMG to sound like a bee. Yeah, you would think, but Yeah, that's the way they decided to play it. B. Mitchell says, leave the OEM butt kissing to your buddy Doug unless Toyota Shield chimes in. Yeah, no, I mean, I always call it how I see it. It's always my honest opinions there. I've given up a long time ago on trying to appease manufacturers. That's kind of a lost cause, I think, for most people anyway. I speak honestly and see what happens. But Raphael says, not a hot weather person, so summer is my least favorite season, but I'm a gardener, so I try to manage. Man, that has got to be a tough job to do in the summer, though. But at least you're a hot weather person. That's good. MD Ken says, no, I forgot to play it. Oh, man. Yeah, Danza Kuduro. That's the go-to Fast and Furious barbecue song, I feel like, right? I mean, I guess they didn't play it during the barbecue for being technical about the movie semantics here, but yeah, I feel like it's always a great summer song, too. I always love that one. And arguably one of my favorite endings to a Fast and Furious movie too. But let me see. So Cam Jips is going on vacation this week. Gonna miss the next live stream. Well, enjoy your vacation. That's awesome. Hope you're doing something fun, going somewhere cool. And congrats on the vacation. And yeah, hope you enjoy it. Dylan says, speaking of slamming prices, the new Tacoma can hit 65 grand. Nearly spit my drink out seeing that. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it does have way more power than any Tacoma has had in the past. So there's that to contextualize it a little bit. They're trying to go after Ranger Raptor, which is also similar money. But it is crazy. I mean, especially, just the full size trucks aren't that much more expensive. I mean, maybe Raptor prices have gone up more, but I feel like they're like high 70s. It's like once you get to that kind of a price point, if you're within 10 grand of something that's a lot bigger, a lot more stuff, it's in those higher prices, 10 grand is not that big of a jump that, it gets real hard to justify. I feel like those 65 grand Tacomas are for the Toyota faithful that just have to have the best Tacoma possible. And I don't know, I guess they're hoping that maybe the resale value works out in their favor, but yeah, I can't recommend a 65 grand Tacoma, especially since the Ranger Raptor is actually cheaper too. But Good Stick says, my 2014 Sienna LE has a cheap urethane steering wheel. It is so hot out in the summer season. That's rough. Yeah, I feel like a leather wrap wheel, I mean, it's probably not that much better, but like I really don't like non-leather wrap wheels. It just, some of them do it better than others where it's livable, but most of them, they usually end up annoying me. And I think you can actually do aftermarket leather wrapping as well if you don't want to do like a steering wheel cover or something like that. But I think there's even, swaps you could do if you wanted. But yeah, urethane wheels, definitely not fun. Spy Harpy says, met with my car buddies this weekend. One got a GT3 RS, got a thrill ride. Holy cow, is this car fast and the noise it makes. This is a street legal race car. Was left completely speechless. That's awesome. Yeah, I've never been in any GT3 RS newer than the 997 generation. I mean, even that's amazing, but the newer ones, I'm sure, are just amazing. Just automotive perfection almost in many ways. And it's awesome you got to ride one. And congrats to your friend for getting one too. That's an awesome achievement. And Mike says, speaking of product cycles, I mean, the RAV is now going on its 6th model year and they're on pace to sell 500,000 this year. I peeped the QT sales. Wow, 500K is a nice improvement because they were usually around 400. And I thought they actually kind of fell back into the high 300s, like 380, 370 last year or something. So if they're on pace for 500, that's huge. That is wild. Yeah. And I mean, I am not envious of the people that have to make those decisions. Like, you're selling 500,000 of those things a year. Like, talk about the pressure to not screw up a new generation or like when to introduce a new generation when it's literally the best selling vehicle outside of the F-150. That has got to be so hard to do. I mean, obviously you can just basically play it super, super safe and just phone in stuff and just, try and be very evolutionary with the way that you change it. But, it's tempting just to leave it. Like, if there's nothing wrong with it, why reach for more? And it's all paid off probably at this point. It's pure profit. So honestly, like if I was Toyota, I'd probably wait until sales started a significant downward trend before you even touch it. I mean, especially again, if it also helps keep the price low, because if you say, okay, new generation is going to be $2,000 more or whatever, then, that can screw things up. I mean, they may do it the same way as Camry, where they just make everything hybrid, and then they make it, $100 or so less than the outgoing base hybrid was, which was great. And that's why I think we're seeing, Camry sales are already doing fantastic. So they do something like that, and they want to try and raise their cafe averages and stuff by making them all hybrid or something, but then again, you risk upsetting some people that maybe, want a loaded CRV but don't want the hybrid thing, and so they go buy a loaded RAV4 or something instead. There's so much risk with that, and yeah, that'd be so tough to decide. And B Mitchell says new model name for Mitsubishi, TMI, WTF. Yeah. I hope Mitsubishi introduces some promising new stuff like the rumor suggests at some point here. And Trent Carguy says new Sentra's all right, just looks like a smaller Altima. Yeah, and I think that's no bad thing really. And Six Licks, thanks for stopping by. It says long time no see. Hope you've been well, Matt. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, unfortunately last week I missed because of some rough times, but happily doing better this week, thankfully. But thanks for stopping by, Six Licks. And let me see. Yeah, Camp Jim says we want to hear what happened after those shots, slams it in. So hopefully he can comment in here again and give us an update on how he's doing. But Grand Admiral says, I'm not a hot weather person either. Fall is my favorite season. I do love fall as well, especially here in the Pittsburgh area with all the, trees changing color of the leaves and stuff. It is a awesome time of year, especially for like a couple of weeks there where you have like the peak color. It's the best. Yeah, even if I, for some reason move to a place where you didn't have all 4 seasons, like I still feel like I'd want to stop by the East Coast for at least a week or 2 in the fall just to take in the color. It's just awesome. And Carr says it was amazing to discover that the base 1996 Ford F-150 was 2.6 inches shorter than the current Ford Maverick. What are your feelings about so many vehicles getting larger these days? It is wild for sure. I actually didn't know that statistic. That's fun to know. So thanks for sharing that. And yeah, it's interesting. In so many ways, it seems like we're repeating car history from 50 years ago, where, you had the muscle years of the 60s and arguably into the, starting in the late 50s, into the 60s, going into, the early 70s, and then kind of getting shut down with all the emission stuff. They've, oil crisis and embargoes and all that kind of stuff with gas prices going crazy and having gas rationing, which imagine that today, by the way, just a wild concept from a time when people could actually live without things and not riot over it. But anyway, so, it's just crazy how, then as you went into the 70s, things got so big, so huge with these cars. And then all of a sudden everything like shrunk. And I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see some kind of resurgence of that trend, because it's like, okay, we had our muscle years. We've had the end of the muscle stuff kind of in a way with, the Dodge stuff going away and things like that. And we have these enormous luxurious things. And, we see like the Lincoln Nautilus is this like rolling sofa, and I'll talk more about that in my Nautilus review coming up here in about a month or so, I think. But so many of these vehicles now just all about luxury, not worried about the sporty thing or anything, and just people wanting a ton of space, and that being the key selling point, just like it kind of was back then. You look at what is the things that are selling super well, like the Chevy Trax has a huge back seat for $20-some thousand. There's I feel like we're kind of seeing, even though again we do have small cars, and they had small cars in the 70s too, but it's like this trend of people wanting these large things, and then those large things kind of, again, because of the gas stuff back then, kind of going into this phase of like, okay, well now I need better fuel economy, I need better efficiency, I can make do with something smaller. Like I was just saying a few minutes ago, with the resurgence of compact sedan sales so far this year. I don't know. Things don't always exactly copy, as we saw. We've done the muscle thing differently than they did back in the 60s and stuff. But, it'll be interesting to see how much of that history kind of repeats itself as well as far as cars go. And it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think larger cars is, it's problematic in a bunch of different ways. I don't love it. I've always been a fan of small cars. And it's just, again, differences in preferences, difference in, culture, and just what people want and what they think is cool. And, a lot of it is also, things like people getting wanting to go camping and feeling like they need 15 inches of ground clearance just to like go on a gravel road, and those types of things too, which kind of play into that larger vehicle and all that. So there's just a lot of those things that play into it. But it's, as we've seen with the statistics, it's bad for pedestrians. It's bad for, even just car crash severity has gotten higher and higher in the past few years as well, because you're dealing with more weight in most of these vehicles typically. And so, again, I won't go on my whole safety rant because I know that probably bores most people, but, I'm in favor of smaller vehicles. I think smaller vehicles are generally, the better way to go. Smaller, lighter is more efficient. It's more fun to drive, and it still serves its purpose. But the thing is, if you're in a Miata and you're next to a Hummer, they're not going to feel safe. So it's just getting, it's just this balancing act of having something that you still feel safe in with everyone else around you, but not continuing to contribute to that arms race. So it's, anyway, I'm team small car. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. I'm sure all the people are able to join or rejoin there appreciate it as well. But thank you, Kyle, for your generosity. And let me see. So the Good Stick says, in the 2010s, people were complaining about too many buttons, such as Honda and Acura. Now everyone is complaining about everything being crammed into a touchscreen like Tesla. Yeah, and people not having enough buttons. So, I mean, I think there's a happy medium there. I do think that some vehicles went a little too crazy. I mean, if you look at a first generation Porsche Panamera and all the buttons on the center console and stuff, like some companies, I mean, you could argue that that's good or cool in whatever way. And I can see that point of view. I'm not mad about it, but it's just like some companies did really go crazy on the buttons there. But now, yeah, that would be like something people would love. I think we will see that kind of come back around too, of, other people have been saying this as well, where analog gauges could become this cool thing. And I think maybe Bugatti, not like they are a predictor of car trends or anything, but they're showing how like their buyers still want a naturally aspirated engine. I mean, they're okay with the electrification thing, but they don't want to have a downsizing thing or something that feels like it's a downgrade from before. And they want the analog gauges, which you have there with the beautiful mechanical dials in those, and a very minimal screen that hides away and all that. I think, again, not like billionaires are representative of what regular car buyers want, but I think that you will see, every trend is just that, a trend that people get tired of after a while and they miss the old thing. And because everyone gets sentimental at some point sooner or later for what was before. And, you're going to see people say, oh yeah, well, this is super futuristic and cool. I'm tired of it. I want to go back to analog. And we saw this again, talking about history repeating itself with cars. We saw this in the 80s. Look at a C4 Corvette with its digital gauges. And then what did they do with the C5? They went back to analog, and there's a lot of cars with those futuristic bar style, gauges, Nissan Zs of the time and things like that. I think Camaros, a bunch of them kind of did that kind of thing. And it was futuristic and cool and all that. But it was a trend, and we will see if this sticks around. These days, I think car companies are going to try and have it stick around longer because it's a great cost-cutting thing. It's actually cheaper to put the screen in, even though they market it as an upgrade. I'm pretty sure in most cases the screen is actually cheaper to do than a set of real analog gauges. So I feel like car companies will really try and push hard for that to really have some staying power for that trend. But we'll see. Maybe people will, want more buttons and less screens, and we'll see how that plays out. Let me see. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, hey, Matt, do you think used AMG GTs are good deals? They're a lot cheaper than similar 991.2 911s, but they seem to be more like German muscle cars. Yeah, I mean, I really like the AMG GT. At its time, whenever it came out and was new, I did a review of one, the GTC convertible. I liked it. It was really good. And for me, I've just preferred the LC500, even though objectively I think the AMG was probably the better driving car, just as far as like having a quicker transmission, better manual shifts, a little bit more aggression and, all that. But, like for me, I was like, even on the AVA event, if you've been following the channel for a while, we had those two cars side by side, and I reviewed the LC 500. I'm like, I just would rather have the LC. I know those are probably holding their value really strongly as well, like the 911s. But yeah, between in that kind of a segment, I'd probably go LC. But I know, like I was talking to Jason from Engineering Explained whenever we were on that trip together, and he was like, "Oh, the AMG is definitely better." And I'm like, I can see what you mean. I don't disagree, but I still want the probably objectively worse LC just because it's just so drop dead gorgeous, sounds so great. It's more comfortable. The AMG is a little stiff. It's a little more hardcore than I think most people probably want out of a Grand Tour. It's a far cry from the SLs and stuff like that. So if it's an actual sports car, for you, then that's great. If you want something that's comfortable, I don't know if I'd want to live with an AMG GT personally. Not like an LC 500 is a super practical vehicle either, but I haven't looked at pricing for them, but if it's a lot cheaper than a 991.2 911, yeah, you're right about it being a muscle car versus the 911 having more finesse for sure. So that's going to come down to how you feel about those differences. I'd certainly try and test drive one if you can. But yeah, I'd say if it's a lot cheaper and you just want like a fun German sports car, I think the AMG GT would be a fun thing to at least try out, especially if they've reached, a fairly stable point in their depreciation at this point, where you're not going to get burned on a huge drop, in the next year or two. Try it out for, a year or something, see what you feel about it. And if, you're still having that itch for a 911, then, maybe still have that be the goal. But AMG GT is not a bad car to be in the meantime. I would recommend an extended warranty, like I recommend for any used German vehicle, preferably even if you can get one like certified or something, that would be even better. But outside of that, yeah, I think they're fantastic, fun, very capable sports cars for sure. And thanks, Jeremy, for the super chat. And if you have any follow-up questions, again, feel free to ask, and if you have any extra context there, I can maybe give you a better answer, but hopefully that helps you a little bit. And Raphael, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, screens are fine, just integrate them rather than stick them on with Velcro and calling it good. That is certainly true. And there's been a few screens recently that have been really well integrated. And honestly, I was impressed with the Nautilus. Again, that car was so impressive to me, and it's annoying because I haven't posted the review yet, so I'm referring to things that you guys haven't seen or heard from me yet. But they have this big screen, a super wide, very narrow, but it's at the base of the windshield, and you would think it would be really obnoxious and get in the way and stuff, but it is actually really well integrated. And I'm like, this is really like what the future should be. And they still have a little touchscreen that's right there for your CarPlay and stuff, so you don't have to like pick or choose. You can have your cake and eat it too. And but yeah, I agree. Like, good integrations are key. And there's some companies that do it. It's really tricky with the size of the screens getting so big, because if you're not going to just have the screen popped up on top of the dashboard there, then you got to raise the whole dashboard so it doesn't look too weird. And so then if you have extra mass that then blocking your view, that's the thing from an interior designer standpoint that's really tough, because then it's like, how do we integrate this? Because they all want to have them up high so you're not looking down into your lap to like do your CarPlay or whatever. So it's like you got to have it high-ish if you want to feel safe about your screen placement, but then you can't have it so high that you're blocking stuff and then adding in this high dashboard and stuff. So it's a tough juggling act for sure. And I think some companies do it better than others. But yeah, it's tough. And thank you, Raphael, for the super chat. I appreciate it. And let me see other member questions here. So V. Mitchell's asking about the F-150s there. And Six Look says, Matt, do you have an opinion on the Porsche 911 996 generation in comparison to the 997? I was never a fan of 996, to be honest. And they also did have that bearing issue, which, everyone's aware of it now, and you can get it done and fixed and you don't have to worry anymore. But I don't know. I never loved the looks of the 996. The interior is just not nearly as nicely designed as the 997, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask, because I worked at, a Porsche dealer around the time when 996s were like really undesirable and were all like beaten to hell and back, and just like, they were having all these electrical glitches and, just all kinds of crap. And I just didn't enjoy working on 996s back then. And the 997s admittedly were like the newer one. That was the new one they were selling them brand new whenever I was working at this dealership. But I just 997, got back to the round headlights, nicer screen design, and for the way they set everything up, the materials, the buttons, and all that are, I'd say better. Not amazing by modern standards, but better than 996, which was really cheap feeling with the buttons and stuff. So, and same thing goes for first gen Boxsters. A lot of people really are loving the value of those, and I can certainly appreciate the financial side of it from a savings. The fact that you get a Porsche with a mid-engine layout and a 6-cylinder engine for dirt cheap is great. Just again, they are problematic from what I've seen. And yeah, I'd never had much love for first gen Boxsters and 996s. But once you got into 997 and then that second gen Boxster and beyond, for me, those are a lot more desirable. So personally, in my opinion, I would pay a few bucks more for a 997, but that's a matter of subjective, preferences, I think. Linda says, I had my 1974 Mustang too. When there was gas rationing, no one wanted a gas guzzler. 17 mpg around town, 24 on the road. Nice. That's pretty cool. You had a Mustang too. And I mean, those got so much grief, for being so uncool or whatever after the fact. But so many people don't realize, like, they sold so many Mustang 2s. There was tons of those things on the road back then. And the sales numbers show, like, it was a huge success. It was the right car for the right time. And it's been kind of like a running joke, in the muscle car world since, but like Mustang 2s are great. It's a shame that more of them didn't survive. They're so rare to see at car shows. And whenever I see one, I'm like, wow, like, because not many of those survived, and I'm always excited to see one. But that's cool you had one, Linda. Thanks for sharing that. That's crazy. I'd love to hear the stories about how it was like to live with the gas rationing and stuff back then. I'm sure it was crazy. And Cam Jim says, comparing new Civic Sport Touring hatch hybrid versus Camry SE all-wheel drive, which would you take? I know the Camry is more expensive. It's hard because I haven't driven the hybrid Civic yet, so it's, but again, like I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, as far as, if it's basically the Accord hybrid powertrain, as we know, in the Civic, and driving the Accord, putting that powertrain mentally into the Civic and combining that and doing my own simulation in my mind here. I mean, I would say, obviously you're talking about a different class of vehicle, with Civic being compact, Camry being midsize. I think it's going to come down to the driver inputs more so. Like, I think Civic has better steering feel. I think Civic has nicer feeling brakes. Throttle response to the CVT in the hybrid Hondas is a little bit better, in my opinion, than it is in the Toyotas. So there's those minor things. Outside of that, though, I don't know, because you're also comparing a front-wheel drive vehicle to an all-wheel drive one, so there's that difference as well, as far as capabilities and all of that. It's tough, because even like SE interior is really nice in the Camry. It's actually really nice for the money. But I'd say Sport Touring is a little bit nicer. You get the Bose stereo in those and stuff. So I probably would say, especially since you can get the hatch with the extra practicality, personally, I'd probably go Civic hatch hybrid. I'm guessing, again, if it drives like I'm expecting it to. Just because, again, I'm team small car, and to me, you have so much room in a Civic hatch, you don't need a bigger car. So having to park a bigger Camry and, having the less practicality with the trunk and stuff, yeah, I'd go for the Civic. But you can't go wrong with either one, honestly, I think. And Good Stick says, why do 3-row SUVs sell so well when a minivan is around the same price? It can actually fit people comfortably for long trips. And I will add, can actually haul way more cargo, too, for all those people. But it's a good question that I think everyone has kind of thrown their hands up in the air and just written it off to stigma. It's the stigma of having a minivan still. That's because objectively, we're not even talking subjective stuff. Like, objectively, a minivan does the job of a 3-row SUV much better. You have way more space. It's so much easier to, put in car seats to get kids in and out. The power doors, which, it just, and I think it was Eric the car guy who was telling me how he didn't like minivans for the longest time. And then whenever he had, his kids and stuff, he was like, I finally just like caved and got a van. I'm like, it was the best thing ever. He's like, minivans are amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's one of those things, maybe if people like lived with one for a rental or something, they would like see the perks. And once you experience that for yourself, maybe be a little more open to it. But I think it really is just, again, people like that macho vibe of an SUV. They like sitting up a tiny bit higher in an SUV. But yeah, and you'll another video that, again, it's so backlogged, but I reviewed a Pacifica plug-in hybrid, and that's going to be coming here probably in about a month or so as well for that review. But the Cliff Notes says I really liked it. It's still so good. And yeah, if I had, a bunch of kids and I only have one, if I had a ton of kids, I would absolutely have a minivan, and probably the Pacifica again. Spoiler alert, over the others. Pacifica is just so well done. And yeah, I think minivans are the better way to go. But again, people's car choices, I mean, it's never been a fully rational thing. There's a few people who put everything into a spreadsheet and objectively pick the car that is, the right solution to that math equation. But like a lot of people, people have biases. People have just fickle things. My sister won't buy a car that doesn't have a gas pedal mounted to the floor. Hanging gas pedals bother her. That's just one example of, things that can sway things in ways that don't make sense to us, but to those people, like, it's, oh, well, I got to have this, so same thing with the 3-row SUVs. I think companies just realize people want them, so we'll just keep building them, even if it doesn't really make much sense. And I mean, some do it better than others, where some do it so well that the perks of a minivan aren't quite as huge as they are in others, but there's some of these where it's just like, you make it so much harder on yourself, whenever there's a minivan right there in the same showroom, waiting for you, if you just give it a chance. But let me see. Trent Car Guy says, I'm sure my wagon is about the size of the SUVs of the 90s, and it almost dwarfs my Lancer. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was just saying a couple weeks ago, I was in a Mazda CX-70, and we were driving next to a second-gen Ford Explorer. And me being a little kid thinking that was like such a big car in the 90s, and being like, wow, they have a big SUV. And then like I'm rolling in a CX-70 next to this Explorer, and the Explorer just looks tiny. It actually looks like it's a kid's toy or something. Like, it's so small. And yeah, I mean, that just perfectly illustrates the giantness of these vehicles these days. It's wild. But again, people say they want bigger stuff. They want more ability to haul stuff, and they have to have tons and tons of space. And so that's the way we're going right now. It's the fad. And MD Can says it's very difficult to talk about that new Tourbillon without mentioning those absolutely gorgeous gauges. I know. I love that thing. It seems like it is so amazing. And motivation to continue to play the lottery. Even if I won the lottery, I don't think I'd be able to get one, because it's like, instead of what they're starting to build them in 2026, they're only doing 250 of them. I'm sure the most of the run is already sold out, if not completely sold out already. And then, what are they, $4 million to start? And then if you don't want to, if you're not in Bugatti's good graces already, then you got to pay a flipper, and probably pay $10 million for the car or something. But it is definitely a dream. And let me see. Trunk Car Guy says the Lancer and the Wagoner are only 4 years apart. Yeah, it's funny how it just kind of ballooned. And MD Can says, oh God, 2 of my favorite channels are going to be live simultaneously. Matt Moran Motoring and now Ryan Hall, y'all. I don't know who Ryan Hall is, but that's awesome. And yeah, thanks for stopping by. Don't feel bad at all if you want to go hop over there, and yeah, enjoy it. And yeah, I'm sure Sunday nights, it makes a lot of sense. So maybe others are coming around to that idea as well. And MD Can says, I bet you know what I'm going to watch. The comment is your answer. Well, I appreciate it. But again, all good. I'll be here next week, hopefully, knock on wood as well. And you can always chat more then. But Cam Jim says, got my Matt Moran Motoring hoodie today as a very late Christmas present, or I guess a very early one. Well, that's awesome. And thanks so much for supporting with the merch there. And yeah, I'm hoping to have more merch options soon. I'm hoping to work on that at some point. So hopefully there'll be more cool stuff for those of you who do want to support the channel going forward. Just haven't had the time to put everything together yet, but I'm going to have hopefully a lot more cool stuff than I was ever able to offer before. Yeah, so I got all kinds of fun little ideas of things I can, slap the logo on and all that. So I appreciate the support on that as well. And Raphael says, Savage Geese did a brilliant fit on electric cars. We don't hate them. The rollout just wasn't thought out. Yeah, I'll have to watch it. I haven't seen it. I mean, I won't go into my whole, tangent about the current EV state, but yeah, I still think everything is going okay. But again, I could go on for 20 minutes explaining why, but I don't want to drive everyone away with EV talk here because I know it's pretty universally unpopular. So we'll just move on here. But Slam Sedan says, man, I had a wild 4th of July. How was yours, Matt? Mine was pretty chill. Just hung with some family and had a couple of drinks and just had a burger, had a hot dog, and just had a nice kind of relaxing day. I had to work until about 3:00 or so still because that's part of not working a corporate job is I don't have any days off unless I work ahead, work overtime to make that time and clear that time out in my schedule. So basically just tried to get the day, get all my stuff that I need to do as quickly as possible, and then was able to enjoy it after that. But holidays are pretty much non-existent outside of I just take off on Christmas and things like that. But usually every other holiday I end up working in one way or another. But let me see. B. Mitchell says 996 turbos didn't have the IMS issue, but they still have the goofy fried egg headlights from the Boxer and built to a price interior. I thought the turbos don't have the IMS, so it's just the regular ones. Gotcha. Yeah. So in turbo, the turbo ones are sweet. Although I don't know, 996, really any of the turbo 911s, even the newer ones, they've gotten better, but they just never sounded great to me. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but to me, I never have loved, especially when you put exhaust on them, they just don't sound that great to me personally. Again, probably have some people that will not agree with that, but that's okay. But I was never in love with the turbos. Honestly, I think the naturally aspirated ones are a little more fun. But let me see. So Abby Mitchell says 1974 was the second largest year of Mustang production. They all got sacrificed for street rod front ends. That's true. Good Stick says Sally from Cars is a 996 generation 911. That's true. And Sally's great in cars, but yeah, just still no love from me. B Mitchell says thanks for the reply about the truck size. Yeah, that's crazy. And Mike says minivan versus three-row SUV packaging is not comparable. Minivan is so much more well packaged, even though three-rows have gotten much better. Yeah, I know. I try to highlight this in my reviews, but it's again, everyone has their preferences. It is what it is. I think it's crazy the amount of people that feel the need for trucks when they don't actually need trucks. It's the same kind of thing of just people like that image for whatever reason, or they like being prepared for whatever they feel like they're being prepared for by having that certain vehicle, and everyone's different. But Linda says I had a 1996 extended version Caravan. It was great. We all had them. Then they became uncool. Yep, I know. It was such a Swiss Army knife of vehicles. And Grant says the minivan talk makes me want an A-Team van. Yeah, those are awesome too. And I feel like I was hoping that we were going to see, maybe that is still a 70s trend that we will see at some point here in the future, of just the van life thing extending beyond just the giant stuff and moving into why isn't no one pimping out Chevy Expresses and things like that, or Ford Transits? I feel like that they could Ford is missing the boat there, and so is Chevy. They could totally do a high country express van or something like that and make them super nice, and have A-Team conversions, things like that. Maybe Volkswagen will kind of convince people with Return of the Buzz, if that is something that actually goes over well. We will see. There was a lot of hype initially. We will see again, how the cooling EV market kind of influences that a little bit, and we'll see what happens with the Buzz. But I hope it actually does well, since they're finally bringing the bus back to the States. I hope that it actually does well for Volkswagen. And Truck and Car Guy says vans are great for what they're designed to do. I think SUVs, especially something like a Durango Suburban or Expedition, are just better multitaskers. Whenever you're talking, once you get to like the full size truck SUVs, I can see that for sure. But the 3.0 crossovers, I think, is mostly what are the biggest offenders of just the whole like, this looks cooler, this has a better image to it, but it's actually objectively worse. But you're right. I mean, once you're getting into Durango, to a certain extent, but especially Suburban Expedition. I mean, those are truly like, you can load up everyone's stuff in the back of those things for 3 rows of people, and it's that's definitely got an edge, I think, over the minivan in that case. MD Can says, I truthfully hate floor mounted gas pedals. Makes it difficult to clean around. Both my Konas have it mounted from above. My Tucson before I got the N was floor mounted. Interesting. I don't know. For my sister, it just feels weird, the positioning if it's not on the floor. It's kind of funny. B. Mitchell says, I spent a whole career in the telecom industry driving most variations of minivans. Chrysler still did the best for each generation. Nice. Yeah, I don't have a ton of experience, but my cousins had vans I rode in a bunch back in the day and things like that. The Chryslers have always been pretty good ones, I think, too. And Jay says, hey, Matt, so great to see you again. Hope you and your family are in great health and doing well. I'm running around getting things ready for my older brother's funeral this week. Oh, man, I'm so sorry to hear that, Jay. That's terrible. Thanks for stopping by. But, it sounds like you have more important things to worry about right now. I'm very sorry for your loss. Hope things, improve at some point. And, that is rough. So I can't imagine losing a sibling. So I wish you the best, I guess you could expect in this tough time, but sorry to hear that, Jay. Trent Cartwright, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. I'm sure everyone that's grabbing those appreciates that as well. And appreciate it once again, Trent Cartwright. Let me see. Cam Jam says Sunday nights must be popular. One channel I watch, the Watercraft Journal, is also Sundays at 8 p.m. Nice. Okay, well, I guess my idea wasn't that original. And Good Stick says, when Nissan discounted the Quest in 2011, they told people to look at the Pathfinder as it has the same versatility. It's clearly does not. I mean, Quest, as far as minivans goes, I feel like Quest was especially bad, though. So in that case, maybe a Pathfinder would be better. Obviously not from a packaging standpoint, but maybe as far as other things goes, I don't know. ND Can, thank you also for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity there as well, and glad to see everyone is able to snatch those up. And thank you again for your generosity. He says up to 15 gifted now. That's awesome, and hope you feel good about the generosity, everyone. It's awesome, and I appreciate it as well. Thank you so much. Let me see. So, MD Can says, I can't wait to see your reaction to the Ioniq 5N. I get a feeling you're going to be laughing or grinning big. Hopefully my dealer gets one in so I can get my hands on one. Such an intriguing car. Yeah, I was supposed to have it a couple of weeks ago, and then I ended up getting the Elantra N instead. They just swap it out last minute. But it was just because it was needed for another event elsewhere or something. But I'm going to finally have it here this week, so I'm excited to finally try out the 5N. And I've heard good things, so I'm excited to try it out on my own. It should be great, and that video will be coming here soon. Slam Sedan says, I remember my parents had a Chevy Astro growing up. Nice, that's cool. And it was Slam, you gotta give us an update too as far as how you're doing, because we were all worried about you for a week or two there. So I'm glad to see you're commenting again and hanging out. Hope you're doing well after the 13 shots, or potentially not 13 shots. We were all hoping that was just a joke. Let me see. Mike says, hey, Matt, what vehicle, regardless of product age, do you think is one of the toughest sells in today's market? Interesting question. Let me think. Regardless of product age. That's a tough one. I'm gonna get a drink here and think about this. I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I think Mirage is a tough sell, just because it's so dated at this point and just is so outdated. Not even from just a like product life standpoint, but just from the kind of packaging, the kind of sizing. Again, talking about ballooning vehicles, Mirage never grew really. Just that whole thing I think is kind of interesting. The Mirage is still kind of stuck in the 80s as far as sizing and powertrain and all that, in possibly some very good ways. Again, Mirage sales are early up this year. I think people love, the affordability, obviously, love the fuel economy and things like that. But I think Mirage it's still just like, again, like I was talking at the beginning of this live stream, Versa is pretty close in price, and Versa is newer, it's bigger, it's more powerful. And it's just like, I just rather have a Versa. So I think Mirage is probably one of the toughest ones there. As far as other tough sells in today's market, I don't know, because it's hard for me to like think off the top of my head of like vehicles that I hate so bad, like that this is like just makes zero sense. I think most things have a niche, for certain people, but yeah, I'm trying to think. If I think of a better answer, I will let you know. And I'd say Mirage is probably one of my top picks for that answer. Trying to think. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. I mean, some of the large, SUVs and stuff too are kind of tough sells. I'm curious to see. I haven't tried out the new Infiniti QX80, but looking at the pricing of that, I mean, I believe, again, I'm a little foggy on all the numbers and everything, but I believe it actually is slightly more expensive than a comparable like Navigator and stuff. And I mean, I'm sure they're going to discount them a lot pretty quickly. But if we're talking MSRPs, that is going to be one where it's just like, who is going to go for a QX80 over an Escalade or a Navigator? Like, especially in America, you're going up against the American brands that have been doing this forever and objectively probably do it better. That's going to be a really tough sell, I think. So that's another one I think that's definitely going to be problematic. I mean, maybe I'll drive it and I'll say this is the most amazing thing ever and it's worth the extra money over a Navigator or an Escalade, but I'm very highly doubting that that's going to be my position after I drive it. So there's that. Yeah, I don't think of any others off the top of my head that are really, really tough sells. I mean, that Mercedes GLA is probably fairly high up there as well, 64 grand for something that has as much horsepower as an EcoBoost Mustang and has actually got worse fit and finish than the EcoBoost Mustang and stuff. I'd say a lot of Mercedes stuff honestly is a tough sell to me. I think in most cases I'd rather have the competitors. And so I think Mercedes is kind of one of those companies that have, in my opinion, lost their way a little bit. I'm going to be trying some of their newer stuff here coming up to see, I'm going to actually have an E450 all-terrain here, which is really cool. It's one of the last wagons. I got to give them a huge amount of credit for bringing that over here. But I feel like Mercedes typically are just a little more expensive than the others. They've kind of, while others have continued with like the 6 cylinders for the performance things, they've gone down to the 4 cylinders with like the new C63 debacle and everything. So I think that Mercedes in general is a tough brand for me to kind of get behind in most cases whenever you compare MSRPs and stuff these days. So those are probably the top ones there, but great question, Mike. And Slam Sedan says Ford Expedition in the 2000s was a cramped three-row experience. Yeah, they've definitely gotten better with their packaging, especially like the GM full-size trucks with this current generation where they're able to go with the independent rear suspension now and really open up a lot of space there for that third row. So they've gotten a lot better. But yeah, I remember some of those not having the best space. I remember riding in, I believe there's once or twice I rode in a classmate's excursion in the third row. And even that, I don't believe was super big compared to like what we see in like a Grand Highlander or something these days. So they've definitely all gotten better with their packaging, I think. Jay says, deciding to keep my 2019 Type R instead of selling since my brother would have called me an idiot for giving up one of my dream cars. Well, that is an awesome thing to do in his honor, and that's really cool. And and if he really loved it, that would be another reason, yeah, just to keep it. Even if you didn't love it, I mean, I'm sure if it's something that he really loved, then that's a perfect reason to keep it forever. If that was a car that he really enjoyed, so that's really cool, Jay. And Good Six says the only SUVs with comparable third row room are the Suburbans and the Expeditions. Yeah, definitely. And Jay says, thanks, Matt. Really appreciate your response. It's really rough July, especially happening the day before the 4th. That is tough. And yeah, that is, health is the most important thing. And all these, minor nuisances that, I had back in June and, other things that, people we've been, talking about here, it all pales in comparison to, if we have the breath in our lungs, that is truly, all that matters at the end of the day. So, yeah, that's tough, but I hope you find a path to recovery, at some point here, Jay, and hopefully that Type R continues to put a little bit of a smile on your face and remind you of some good memories as well with him. But Truck and Car Guy says, seems like bad timing on my end. Sorry. No, it's all good, Truck and Car Guy. I appreciate the gifting there. It's generosity is always, I feel like a good thing that never is badly timed, right? But let me see. Jazz says, FYI, a friend has Mercedes-Benz after new 4 years. He bought another 4-year warranty from the dealer. They're unwilling to sell him another warranty when this one ends. That's, well, I guess that maybe that's just company policy, but that seems interesting that they don't want to cover their own products after the 8-year mark. So kind of makes my case for me as far as older German vehicles there. That's interesting. And Six Lick says, Jay, sorry for your loss. I hope everything goes smoothly. I agree. And Slam Sedan says, do you remember the Explorer Firestone tire recalls from the late 90s and early 2000s? Yep, I remember it being on the news and all the paranoia and people freaking out about it, and it was a big thing. It was a huge deal back then. It was crazy for sure. And Six Lick says, Matt, do you have any car content ideas that might be considered pushing the boundaries? I don't think so, honestly. Yeah, especially, I mean, as most of you know pretty well, I'm a pretty risk averse person. So, any of these crazy things like jumping cars over other cars or anything like that, yeah, isn't something that I would even feel comfortable doing. I don't think. As far as I actually saw there was a channel that got recommended to me this past week or two called Car Tea, which was talking about like here's why all the donut guys are leaving and stuff like that. I don't know if it's like gossip about car channel drama or something, but that seems like pushing the boundaries. Like I've danced around the idea of a couple car YouTubers that I'm not super big fans of and stuff. So I mean, I still don't want to rock the boat and make more drama. But that's probably like the only thing if I were to ever just I guess set the record straight in a way on some of this stuff. That could be something that could be a little more considered pushing the boundaries. But yeah, I'm not typically a push the boundaries type of guy. To be totally honest, I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to stuff for the most part. So yeah, I mean, I could probably spitball some ideas and things like that, but no, I don't really have anything. It's mostly at this point just trying to keep my head above water. As far as keeping up with the pace of videos that's required to maintain the level of income that I need to maintain on this channel, and just the hamster wheel that is. So that's honestly not much room for creativity in that kind of a situation, honestly. But Linda says extended Dodge Caravan hauled 4 people, 4 small dogs in crates, luggage, and 2 pairs of trick skins, 2 pairs of jump skis, and on the roof, in the roof. That's in the roof box, I'm guessing. Yeah, caravans were great. It's kind of strange that ever became uncool, to be honest. Again, I guess just everyone was, it was the whole off-roady thing. It just kind of appealed to people. All right, Slam Sedan. Yeah, he gave us an update here. Said the 13 shots didn't phase me. It was more like 3 shots. And honestly, well, I'm glad you're okay. So that's good to hear. Just like you were like, I'm gonna do these shots, and then like you didn't comment the rest of the live stream. We're all like, what happened to him? Where'd he go? I'm sure you just had something come up, and you had more important things to deal with. But we're just all glad you're good, Slam Sedan. So happy to see you in here tonight. The Truck Car Guy says Mitsubishi badly needs to update the Mirage. My 21-year-old Lancer feels about the same as a Mirage. Yeah, and I see TFIPW. I was wondering if he was going to come in here when I was mentioning the Mirage. But yeah, it sounds like Mirage might get a new kind of generation here. We'll see, but yeah, you're right about the 21-year-old Lancer for sure. It is very, very similar, but again, it's simple, it's cheap, and these days, that's not something I think that we should dismiss, because that's what people need right now is affordability. And let me see, and I see Jay's again responding to Six Licks there. And Shankari as well. And Six Licks said, wait, Matt, did something happen to you in June? I've been out of the loop. Hope things are good with you and your family. Yeah, we're okay. I mean, there was just some minor stuff. Again, nothing crazy like what Jay's going through right now. But yeah, we had our refrigerator completely fail, and it was like the kind of job where you're just better off buying a new fridge than getting the other thing replaced. So had to buy a new fridge. It's annoying, but it is what it is. Power went out for a couple of days. Had my neck got screwed up and pulled a muscle in my neck, and I couldn't move my head much for about a week or so. And what was the other thing? There's a few other things that popped up, and then the reason why I missed last week's live stream, there was something that I don't really want to get into, but another thing that was really just the final blow for June that was not fun to deal with. But thankfully, we're all healthy. We're all here, and we're continuing to keep on putting one foot in front of the other. But June was a rough month, just with just one hurdle after another, which is one of the times where you're just like, okay, phew, we got a new fridge, and then like we just filled it with new food, and then the power goes out, then we got to transfer all of our food that we just bought to our in-laws' house, so we didn't ruin all of this food, and it's just those just again silly things. And again, I feel silly even talking about with things like Jay's going through. So it's not the end of the world. Just I was joking earlier that June is my unlucky month, because that's when I had the tree fall on me and the Mustang, and had the accident in the Mustang and all that. So June's just not the best month for me. But thankfully, I've always been healthy every June. I've haven't had any bad losses, so I certainly can't complain. And let me see. Good Stick says, in your opinion, what new cars have you driven that are actually worse than the previous generation? Man, that's another thought-provoking question here. Worse than the old generation. That's really, really rare. I feel like, I mean, there's some preference things where, like a car gets, a new interior. Like I'd argue, for example, I like the interior in the Mark 7 GTI better than the Mark 8. So to me, and my preference is Mark 8 is worse as far as a desirability standpoint compared to Mark 7. So there's like those types of things. So if like, this invasion of tech is something that upsets you, then I think in a lot of ways, a lot of cars from that interior standpoint are a downgrade and are worse than the last generation with more buttons and knobs and all that. So there's those types of things. But I can't think of a car that's drastically worse than the prior generation where they really dropped the ball. I'm sure there's a couple, but it would take me a while to think of a good answer to that one as well, because I'm trying to think of like stuff that has come out recently that's new where I was not excited about it, and then those being worse than the old ones. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head. And let me see. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. I'll let you know if I think of any other answers to that question. But Spy Harpy says, saw an old cartoon about a large Ford SUVs from small to large, naming them Escape, Explorer, Expedition, Excursion, and now the new Excessive. That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised Excursion hasn't come back, honestly. I was waiting for them to do it for years, and they never did. Yeah, and Jazz doesn't think I should jump cars over other cars. Yeah, well, that's already been done already anyway, so even that would be a copycat thing. So, but yeah, I feel like these days everything has been done in one form or another. There's been no stone left unturned there. But Good Stick says, "What's your take on takeovers? I personally hate them as it gives everyone who likes cars a bad reputation from the general public." Is this controversial? I feel like this shouldn't be controversial. Maybe it would be. I'm like debating how to diplomatically answer this one. Um, I mean, so the term takeovers, I think that there's, that sometimes maybe that label has been mislabeled to some, car meets that maybe are a little uh, louder than normal. But if we're talking like legit, at least the kind of takeovers that you see on, TikToks and stuff like that, if we're talking like cars being set on fire, if damage is being done and you're taking over an intersection or a street or something like that, absolutely not cool. And I hopefully that's not controversial. That shouldn't be controversial to say, but I hate saying that because I mean I'm extra weird where like I don't even like demolition derbies because I always feel bad. I feel bad for the cars. I'm like, oh, that was someone's brand new car at one point. Now it's just being used to like slamming other cars. Obviously, people enjoy demolition derbies. No judgment from me if you do, but like you're not a car person to me. If you're enjoying setting a car on fire, if you're enjoying vandalizing a car, you're not a car person. So I don't think takeovers are car people. Maybe they drive sporty cars. And I guess you could say that technically makes them an enthusiast, but I don't think any true enthusiast would be excited about destroying their car or someone else's car. And if you do, like, yeah, that's just to me, that's just not cool at all. So, yeah, I hate takeovers. And I hope that the general public understands that's different. Because even the general public, like most people have been around a regular, wing-a-ding car show at some point where everyone's, polishing up their stuff. Everyone treats their cars really well. And so I hope that even, those regular people that know nothing about cars can identify like these aren't actual car people because why would they be banging up their cars and other people's cars and all that? I could see, the takeover, the street racing part of it, maybe being like a Fast and Furious thing. You kind of lump that in with like, car culture. But the like cars being on fire and being stolen and wrecked and everything like that. It's like who, like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't shouldn't go on a tangent here, but like, one, why does anyone ever want to participate in any of those things or go to those things, or how do you enjoy that stuff? Again, I mean, everyone has their hobbies, whatever, but whenever it's destroying other people's property and you're being a nuisance to the public, you're not going to have my support. So that's, I guess, my take on on that. Hopefully I didn't step on any toes, but I really don't feel bad. If you enjoy vandalizing cars, I'm not going to be your friend. It's just not my thing. But Double Strike, thank you so much for the generosity. They're gifting 10 memberships. I really appreciate it, and happy to see some familiar faces there. Hopefully, some new faces as well. They're able to join and become members here. And thanks, Double Strike, for stopping by as well. But thanks for the generosity too, and I'm sure everyone really appreciates that. And yeah, for everyone that is either rejoining here or is a new member for the first time, be sure to check out the member tab. We have a couple of the behind the scenes videos that I posted last year as far as blooper reels, and I always do the monthly updates. And also there is the Discord server, which has been kind of quiet the past week or two. And I mean, again, I had a lot going on as well, but that's a great place to hang out and chat, amongst yourselves, or ask me other questions that you didn't get answered here in the live stream and things like that. And always a great place to hang. So if you go onto the member tab there should be a link. If you scroll down to a couple of posts there for how to get into the Discord server and start hanging out in there if that's something that you're into as well. And let me see other member questions here. So Grand Admiral says, I've been watching your channel for many years and I always look forward to your videos. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoy it. And thanks for the support all these years. It means a lot. And Six Lick says, Matt, I feel like one idea that pushes the boundaries could be collaborating with TJ Hunt and reviewing each and every single one of his cars. Yeah, he's got a cool collection. And yeah, I was able to bump into him and kind of say hi. When was that? That was SEMA 2019, 2018. Something like, it's been a long time, honestly, even since then, when I was able to like reconnect with him from the early days, because me and him go way back. The start of his channel, he was like giving me a shout out for inspiring him to do reviews and stuff back when he was trying to do something a little more similar to what I was doing. And now obviously he's got his whole brand and his whole empire and all that. But yeah, I haven't really kept up with him too much. Honestly, I don't watch much YouTube at all anyway, just in general. But yeah, I hope he's doing well, and it'd be cool to collaborate. I'd be down for that. Again, I'm not sure, exactly what all he does these days, but yeah, I'm always open to collaborating with most people, because again, I feel like it's easier for me to name the people I wouldn't collab with than the people I would in the car world, because most of the people are super nice, super cool, and just great people for the most part. So I'd be happy to collab with him, I think, if the opportunity ever came up. But he's a big deal these days, so I don't know if he'd be interested in talking to little old me anymore. But yeah, it's great to see the success that he has had. And Six Lick says, if you add criticism and roast some of his mods, that could be pushing the boundaries as well. Yeah, I'm not sure how much he'd go for that, because I remember, wasn't it, I think a while back, I know he has a very defensive fan base, it seemed, at least a long time ago. Again, I have not kept up, but I remember a while ago there were some people that were like giving him crap or something, and his like Hunt Army or whatever he called them, they were like really giving this person a hard time for being critical of him. So I don't know if I'd want to roast him. And I mean, again, I have no problem with him from again, he's always been nice to me, so it's but it'd be fun to maybe roast some mods if it's something I wouldn't have done personally. I don't know, but that could be fun. Thanks for the suggestion there. And yeah, yeah, if he ever reaches out, I'd be happy to try and work something out. And Cam Jam says, Donut used to be one of my favorite channels, but they really sold out. They are basically an ad campaign now. Yeah, I've been seeing more and more of that just in larger channels in general, that I've been hearing, people are saying this is a thing. And even there's one channel that I watch that does like little tips on how to edit videos, because that's the kind of stuff that I do watch from time to time to try and make these videos better. And even that channel, like people are like, man, like it's a 5-minute video and you have a 45 or minute long ad in a 5-minute video. Like this is too much. And they're just like complaining in the comments on even that kind of stuff. So yeah. And I don't get a lot of ad opportunities, honestly. So it's not like me being super picky, but I hope that, that's something that sets my channel apart. You don't have to sit through a bunch of crap to get to the good stuff. I put timestamps in my video. Some channels still refuse to do timestamps because they're worried that people are going to skip out on the video quicker. I'm like, I don't want to waste your time. Sure, I'd love for you to watch the video all the way through. That would help the video. That would help the channel. But I'm not going to waste your time having you make a guessing game out of like where the information is that you actually want. I'm like, here's where the fuel economy is in the video. If you want to see just that and then click away, or you want to hear me talk about the price, then click away, or you just want to hear my giggle from my acceleration reaction and then leave, I'm still grateful for the click regardless. So if that helps you to enjoy the channel more, to get in, see the information you want to see and get out, great. Like, again, that's not what YouTube wants. This is, part of why the channel probably isn't blowing up like others, but like, I just refuse. I respect you guys too much to try and play games or, slather on ad after ad and just make things miserable. Because again, why would people want to watch a channel that does that? I mean, so I haven't followed the donut stuff, so I'm not qualified to give an actual opinion on that. But if they're just like nonstop ads, then yeah, it's no wonder that people are upset about that and the channel's not doing well for them. Yeah, and Sean, thank you so much for being a member for 24 months now, 2 years. It's awesome. Thanks so much, Sean. He says, I read a while back Dodge was considering an EV van with all that floor space, 4 batteries, some estimated the range could be 500 miles or more. Thoughts? I mean, Volkswagen's doing it with the Buzz, and that doesn't do a huge amount of range. It's probably maybe not as big as a Chrysler or Dodge one would be, but excuse me, but Yeah, I feel like it depends, I guess, on how they would package the batteries. Um, I mean, there's potential, for example, if like Chevy wanted to do a van and they wanted to use like the double stack Ultium thing you see in the Silverado EV. I mean, that does, what does that do? 400 miles of range or something like that, right? And that's a Silverado. If you put it in a more aerodynamic, lower, lighter, smaller minivan, maybe they could hit 500 miles, but that's like in a double stack, massive, what, 212 kilowatt hour battery or something. I mean, it would take a lot to get to that kind of a space. So yeah, it'd be cool to see more electric vans. We will see if the Volkswagen one does well for them. Maybe others will consider. I know, Chrysler has said they've kind of tiptoed around this, but they did the there was the new like Future Pacifica kind of concept. I can't remember what they called the thing. It was a couple years ago they came out with a concept and it had these wild, doors and stuff. But they did it seems like, I mean, again, I don't know anything, but it seems like whenever there was a press conference, whenever they were talking about that new Chrysler concept car that came out a few months back, they were saying, people were like, well, when are you gonna do something new with the Pacifica? And they're like, I think there's another refresh coming. They said, and then after that, they're like, we want to. I think they basically were saying we want to. We're always the leaders. We're the inventor of the minivan. We want to innovate it to the next level, which everyone can probably assume means it's going to be an electric one. And hopefully they will do something out of the ordinary or something that truly moves the ball forward in that space. We will see, but I think that's coming inevitably at some point there. It's it'd be interesting to see, if that's the kind of stuff that still is in the plans, considering how everyone's reassessing their plans right now and all that. But it's it'd be cool to see some new fancy vans. Let me see. Six Lick says, "Dang, Matt, I'm not sure if you're a religious person, but we'll be praying for you as a Christian person. I'm betting July will be a better month for all of us. I hope so, especially for Jay. I hope it's a better month for him. But I appreciate that, Six Licks." And Mike says, "What car has felt the most drastically different from a press drive to getting one at home for a week?" Interesting. I don't know. I feel like there's been nothing that's been a wild surprise. I think the only one that, in recent memory is the Ram. The Ram, the screen was a little buggy on the first drive, but that was it. I mean, when I did my first drive in the Ram 1500, it was great. It was fine. I was impressed with it. The power was great. They were all solidly built. I drove a few of them. They were all, no problems, all good. And then I get the one for the week, and I think it was on the media drive, but it wasn't the one that I drove on the media drive if it was. And whoever was driving that one, unless it developed all those issues, at some point in transit from the media drive to, when it got to my house, I don't know. But like that thing, just again, blown speaker, the clunk from the drive line there, all the adaptive cruise stuff not working, the error messages, all this stuff, man, and it's just weird. I think another one too that I didn't experience so much was the Blazer, though. We drove the Blazer on the media launch for the Blazer EV back in December, and I was like, this is great. Everything worked. Everything was fine. No issues. And then they have this huge stop sale, and it's like the software is terrible. And then I feel bad because I'm like, well, it was good when I drove it, and I'm hoping that like people aren't mad at me because I'm like, this is a good car. And then people buy them, and then they're like stuck at the dealer for months on end, and it's this giant headache. And it's just like, I feel bad. I feel blindsided myself because I'm like, crap, like I recommended this. It was a good vehicle. And then all of a sudden they drop the ball on it. And that just, I mean, no one can really predict this stuff. Same thing goes like, people are upset about the Tundra recalls and stuff. And that was literally like, it's a well-engineered vehicle. It's all good. It's just that they screwed up on the production line with the cleanliness or whatever. Crap got into the engines whenever they're building them. And then, now it's like, I still like the Tundra. The Tundra's great, but there's this bad stigma around them because they're recalling all these engines and stuff. But that's another one where it's like, it's a good vehicle, but then it has this bad reputation after the fact. And my video is still on there from before the fact. And so it just doesn't look great from an appearance standpoint. I don't want to give bad information, but at the same time, like, I'm glad, like with Blazer, it seems like they fixed all that stuff, knock on wood for them. And hopefully that video can now continue to be good advice for people. but same thing with Ram. I was like, I'm super impressed with Ram, and then I get it showing up in my driveway, and it's got all these issues. And again, they said that's a pre-production one, and I actually got a phone call from the head of Ram PR about that video. Super nice and very understanding. But he was like, look, like that truck is. There must have been something wrong with it. We're really sorry. He's like, and he was even considering, like, should they send pre-production and stuff like this out, or even have the media drive pre-production stuff at all going forward, because it's like he's like, we want to get this electrical stuff right. And he just thinks it was just a fluke with that one. He has confidence in the trucks, and I do too. I love the Ram, and I still, even in that video, I was like, the Ram would be my pick. I like it better than the F-150. I like it better. I mean, I haven't driven the 2024 F-150, but I like it better than the 23 F-150. I like it better than the Silverado and the GMC and stuff. And so I'm like, even myself, I would rather have the Ram, even knowing maybe it would have a glitch here or there or something. Hopefully not, but but it's just one of those things that, I was kind of blindsided. I'm like, I was expecting this to be totally fine. I took it on a road trip. That's the vehicle I took to meet up in the middle of the state to film the V8 Miata video. I was in that Ram, and I was like, oh, this will be great. I'm going to be on the PA Turnpike for 3.5 hours. I can just put on the hands-free cruise control and let it do its thing. And it's like, oh wait, none of this works. None of this works. The cruise control doesn't work. I'm hearing a route from the, speaker. I had to deal with that for a 7-hour drive round trip. Wasn't ideal because I was expecting it to be fine, and it kind of dropped the ball on me there. But yeah, so there's those types of things. But typically, on first drives, I get a pretty good idea of what a car is like, and when I have it for a week, nothing radically surprises me. It's usually just like I'm either surprised by the fuel economy I get, around my area with my kind of driving, or it's just like little minor nuisances that popped up that I didn't have a chance to absorb on the first drive or whatever. But I'd say, most reviewers can usually agree with this, that like, you do get a pretty good sense. I'd say that I have, 80 to 85% of my opinion probably figured out in the first 15 minutes of a drive, especially if it's a dynamic road and I can really, if I can take it on a quick little highway loop, I can take it on a curvy road and a few bumps and stuff, I can get a pretty good idea of what most things are like in just a few minutes. It's just that week is nice to fully develop stuff, see if there's other things that maybe get annoying after a while, or if any annoying, glitches come up, things like that. But otherwise, this is what I used to do for all this time, before the press vehicles, was hop in a car, drive it for 2 hours, and I'm good. I have a good idea. I can give you guys a good sense of what it's like in, a quick little drive, and I don't need to have a week or even a full day with a car to do a good review on it. But it's nice to have them for that longer period, just again, for those extra little things. And great question again, Mike. Trent Carguy says, from what I've seen, S650 versus S550. As far as responding to the question about stuff that's on a worse vehicle than the prior generation, I'd say, again, S650 is also a personal preference thing. Objectively, it is slightly faster. It's slightly more powerful. It has quicker steering, which I think is actually better. I like the steering better than the S650 for sure. The chassis is slightly more rigid. That's going to be hard to really discern for yourself. Even I, owning S550s for 10 years, it wasn't a giant thing that jumped out at me. And if you didn't tell me it had that, I probably honestly wouldn't even picked up on it. Most likely, it's very minute. But yeah, it's an objective thing as far as the pricing, as far as the interior and things like that. But yeah, for me personally, I agree. S550 is the better one. S650 was a downgrade for me as well. And Jay says, no problems at all, Matt. July isn't going to be my month as June is yours, but just glad you and your family are doing well and in good health. Family is everything, as well as this channel to me. I appreciate that. And I totally agree. Family is definitely the most important thing we hopefully can all cherish and enjoy. And Linda says, do you feel the huge screens in the 2024 S650 Mustangs are being accepted? I'm not a fan. I haven't seen sales recently to know like how well they're moving from a volume standpoint. I think they were slightly off compared to S550, honestly, from a sales standpoint, but that could also just be a product of the higher price tags as well. But it seems like people are mostly okay with them. I think a lot of the Mustang community, they love to be upset about stuff whenever it first comes out, you know, as far as styling changes, interior changes, whatever. And then everyone usually just like gets over it. And then they're all like, I want the new Mustang, and they go out and get it anyway. That's not going to be my my journey, but you know, for a lot of people, I think that is kind of what ends up happening. And so I think that there's a lot of people that are, you know, probably coming around to S650. And so, but yeah, won't be me. I'm definitely never getting an S650, I don't think. And Jacob says, best bang for buck F-150 year, a favorite year. I'm not an F-150 expert by any means, so it's hard for me to say. I gotta say that the new ones, from what I've seen, you know, the fact you get the V8 motor as standard now in a base F-150, you know, obviously again the prices have all creeped up on everything in the past couple of years here, but I mean, I just say the thing with F-150s, and I noticed this even with my 2022 or 2023 review that I did a couple of years ago, was you gotta just be careful with the options, because like it was a 2021, I believe, where it was a it's like $60,000, and this was again before all the inflation, like a 60 grand F-150 with, it's like an XLT trim with cloth seats that still ended up being 60 grand. That makes no sense. Like I feel like optioning up a lower trim doesn't seem like it's a smart choice. It's either go truly base and don't touch the options list, or go up to the next trim level is like my advice. Like don't bother ticking option boxes and loading up an XLT, because on the resale you're going to get hit with like people being like, oh well, it's only an XLT, and it's like, but yeah, but I added in 10 grand and the extra package. Like no, like that, people aren't going to appreciate that, I feel like, as much as just being like, I just went and got a Lariat or whatever. So like, to me, that would be my suggestion, is just go up the trim ladder if you want more stuff. And if you don't want more stuff, then just, you know, stay away from options, because that's where they really make their profit on those things. And Six Licks says, anyone who likes takeovers don't have a driver's license. I actually hate people who even attend takeovers. Go to the track. Yeah, I agree. He says, and better yet, go on the sim rig. Don't even try to drive a real car at takeover fans. Yeah, and I see other people agreeing. Yeah, I agree 100% as well, especially now. You know, I mean, I try and approach this stuff from like, okay, well, what was I doing when I was a teenager or something? And like, I can say like there was a couple of times where like I went to a couple of street races, like, you know, when I was 16, 17 or whatever. I never street raced, like as far as formal, like, you know, lining up, but I went to a couple of those things. I think it was, again, growing up in the Fast and Furious age, especially back then, you know, but even that, like even back then, like there was never anything destructive. There was never anything negative, honestly, aside from like, I guess, like we didn't even like shut down the road. Like I remember like we were gathering on the sides, but like if a car came, like we all like made way and like let the cars through and stuff, and no one ever harassed anybody or anything. And it was just, you know, goofing around. And I mean, street racing is never, you know, I don't really condone it in general, but I mean, again, my teenage mindset trying to like, you know, cut people a break a little bit, like, you know, I can see if you want to hoon late at night in a deserted spot or something, like, again, I agree. Take it to the track. That is wholly my opinion as well. But like, I can understand a little bit of that mindset, but then once it gets destructive, like you lose all sympathy from me or all support. Like it's, you know, but I mean, street racing as well. I mean, especially now being a dad and being obsessed with safety and all this stuff, like, you know, yeah, absolutely take it to the track. And, you know, or at the very least, you know, go in the back of a warehouse lot or something where nobody's around. You know, don't do it on an actual street. There's other places, you know, these giant, you know, lots and things where you can, you know, goof around and stuff if you must. But yeah, the track is great. And that was something I saw, you know, a while back. I think it was especially the Fast and Furious craze, this push of, you know, trying to, you know, have, you know, these grudge match nights and have more, you know, accessibility, I guess, to the drag strips and things like that. And I really wish that some of that stuff, there's even, I believe, like some cop sanctioned things where they actually did shut down roads, but they did it safely. And we're like, all right, we're all doing it on this one night, like have at it. And actually back at what used to be called Pit Race, but is now, I think, Pittsburgh International Race Complex or something. I don't remember what the new name is, but and then maybe it is Pit Race. It used to be Beaver Run is what it was. But regardless, the local racetrack here in Pittsburgh, they have a longer straight and they don't have a drag strip, but they had what was called flashlight drags where you could show up to the racetrack that night and just drag race down there straight away. And I don't know how long it was. I never actually did it, but like, you scratch that itch, you do it on the track though, and then you go home and that's it, but yeah, it's a shame because like it's those types of people ruin it for the rest of us, and now there's more and more of a rising consensus that like you hear about the crazy person and their challenger that runs into someone at 140 miles an hour or whatever. You have those types of stories that then cause other people to want to put these speed limiters on vehicles and have everything be limited to a low top speed and all that, which is unfortunate because again, I feel like it'd be cool to, have a workaround of like, have a GPS linked. So if you're at a racetrack, take off any speed limiters whatsoever, but maybe on the streets, maybe that is a thing. If we can't have people be responsible when we're having, these needless deaths and injuries and stuff, then it's like, what should we trust people with? I mean, I'm not about like telling people what to do, but it's also like, it's not cool to endanger other people. So it's, it's a tough thing to try and figure out. Again, it's just an age-old problem. People have been, trying to figure out for the past 75 years or more, probably. But it's tough. And let me see. Double Strike says late as heck today, but glad I was able to make it after missing the last few. Allow me to throw a few subscriptions into the mix. I really appreciate the generosity there, Double Strike, and thanks for stopping by. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, fellow members, also send your car pics to Matt. I'm out of cars to send them. Yes, if you'd like to have your car featured for Member Car of the Week, send me an email, a message on social media, whatever works for you with your car and what it is and what you love about it. And I'd be happy to feature it as Car of the Week and get back into doing those. We were doing them every Monday there when I had pictures to post, but I ran out of them, and so. B. Mitchell had quite a few there. We were able to sustain those for a while, but haven't had any new ones here recently. But yeah, feel free to send those in. All my contact info, as far as all the social media stuff, all the email stuff, is always in every description of every video. You can find all that and pick the one that works for you. And Truck and Car Guy says, as someone who has made a living driving big trucks on the road, I can't stand takeovers disrupting other people who are just trying to pay their bills and support their families or worse. Yeah, I totally can agree. And Trent Cargay says emergency services trying to respond to emergency for clout is unacceptable. There's all kinds of that stuff. I'm sure I didn't realize they do them on highways. I've seen them on intersections, but I guess, if you're just, driving on, regular roads, not being able to get through. And it's even like thankfully I don't drive around much late at night, but like, it's got to be scary. You're just trying to like get home from something, and it's like, you got to figure out a different way home or whatever. It's just like, not cool. And let me see. Trent Car Guy or Good Stick says, a lot of G35s and 350Zs get destroyed in these events. Very sad, as I always wanted these cars, but I can't find one that hasn't been completely destroyed or have insane body damage. Yeah, and I don't know. I could go on a whole rant, but like, why do you want to ruin your car? Like, because like, it just makes no sense. Like, these people, I'm assuming, aren't millionaires. Like, these are not wealthy people. So why are you like just destroying? I mean, even if it's a stolen car or whatever, like, you could sell that stolen car and make money or something. Like, why waste a perfectly good thing or part it out if it's worthless or it doesn't run well? Or like, there's so many more productive ways to make your life better, and you're just literally burning it away. Just like, it seems like they're like actually hurting themselves deliberately, and it's like, why are you doing that to yourself? Like, it's just, it makes no sense. I would honestly, I'd love to hear from someone if there is a reasoning, or I would love to hear a defense from someone. I feel like it's almost an indefensible thing. But again, people will continue to do them and continue to attend them. It's a completely foreign idea to me. I can't wrap my head around. Hyper Shadow says, my condolences, thoughts and prayers to the Ford CEO. Nothing happened. I'm just hoping he's okay, as I'm sure he's still out there somewhere confused about the Mustang. That's a good one. Yeah, yeah, someone's got to check in on Bill Farley, make sure that he is in the right timeline here. Maybe he's hopped to a different Mandela effect kind of thing where the Mach-E doesn't exist or something with his comments a few weeks ago there. I don't know. But hopefully he is in the right timeline here and knows where he's at. And let me see. Truck and Car Guy says, yeah, talking about the Pacifica EV there. Dylan says, if you were to add another car model to the shelf behind you, what would it be? There's a bunch. Probably, I mean, I'd love a Bugatti Tourbillon model. I'm sure no one's even made that yet, but I love one of those. Any of my dream cars, honestly, would be great to have. 812 GTS, GTC4 Lusso. Even a Pura Songway, I think looks super cool. Even though it's an SUV, I'd happily have one of those there. Yeah, I'm trying to think of any of my dream cars. I love an F-Type. I don't have an F-Type on there. It'd be another one that'd be cool to have. LC500, such a beautiful car. I'd love to have a little model of one of those someday on there. I'm running out of space, so I'd have to start getting selective. Maybe I'd take down some of my DVDs or something. Although in other, let me spin this way. There's there we go. Finally finished building the Aston Martin DB5. That's the James Bond one there. That is many months in the making. Me and my daughter have been building that little by little, and she's been helping me. I was very, very excited that she's only 3, but was helping me. She's putting pieces together little by little, and helping as best she could there. And so I'm really happy I was able to build that with her. And that really is a sentimental one for me now to know that we put that together ourselves. And it's really cool. It has a bunch of gadgets. I don't know if you guys, it's a Lego DB5 where the ejector seat pops out. There's a little machine guns that slide down a little wall, pops up. It's got all kinds of basically all the gadgets pretty much, aside from like the oil slick. But all the other ones it has. And really well done Lego car in my opinion. Really cool. So that was a gift that I got a couple of years ago, and I finally opened it up and was like, I'm gonna do this, and just was able to do it with her, so it was cool. But let me see. Sean says 2 years a member. At this point, I can use Matt's bathroom if I'm in the area. By the way, do you have any wipes in there or in here, or should I just take a shower? Make yourself at home, Sean. Yeah, if anyone's in the area ever, send me a message. I'd be happy to try and grab a beer or something if I'm not out of town or I'm not insanely busy or whatever, working till 11 o'clock at night like I usually do. Anthony's giving directions to the wipes and all that stuff. We got plenty of baby wipes around here with the daughter, so that's should be pretty easy to find those. And Goodstick says the pre-refresh Pacifica from the front looked like a 200. The refresh looks very different. Yeah, I think the refresh is really nice. I always like the Pacificas. I think they do a pretty good job with the styling. Sean says, I'm always hearing stories about GM's EVs being unreliable, but everyone I know who own one loves them and never has any trouble. Well, that's good to hear. I'm hoping that Equinox gets off to a good start here because, that thing starting at 35 grand before the tax credits, super good deal. Such a value proposition. Again, so much space. Excuse me, really nice little vehicle for that kind of money. And I hope that it's glitch free, for the most part. And I think they have a huge potential. They can actually turn them out in good volume. That thing has the potential to really, I think, reignite. Again, EV sales are still growing in their market share, but I think that could really jumpstart a faster growth that we had been seeing in past years. With that, if they do it well and they can actually make them in good volume. I see Sean saying thanks for the membership there, and Miles Away as well. And Dave says, I hear less about problems with GM EVs than with their ICE vehicles. Interesting. Yeah. I hear some stuff with GM ICE stuff from time to time. Honestly, I don't hear tons of stuff. I feel like as far as the American brands goes, I hear more about Stellantis than anything else personally, but it's interesting how we all kind of have different perceptions depending on, where we're hearing stuff from, what we're around and all that. But yeah, it's interesting. And Sean, Slam Sedan says, one of my neighbors has newer Mach 1, and my wife all of a sudden wants Mustangs. Yeah, Mach 1s are sweet. I don't blame her. It's a good car. It's definitely worth a test drive if you've never driven one, Slam Sedan. You might enjoy it. And B. Mitchell says, has given his thoughts on the F-150. I appreciate your expertise, B. Mitchell. Thanks for sharing that there. He says, more of a case of getting one with a Coyote V8 if you don't want to hear your cam phases are bad in your EcoBurst, again, every couple of years from your mechanic. And I honestly, it seems like, it sounds like you know more about those than I do, but from my perception, it seems like EcoBoost motors have been pretty solid after the first year or two. But yeah, maybe there's some issues, and they get the higher mileage. I'm not sure. And Brian says, I have a 1/18 scale Ferrari F430 coupe. I still love the F430. It's such a beautiful car. That'd be another great one to add to the shelf too. Double Strike says, the best part of being a member is the 12 plus month members get the Beth Moran Piano Black interior detailing service. Yeah, I've heard just complaining about your Piano Black interior. There you go. Let me see. I see. Good Stick says the Fiat 500 EV is perfect. He should get more tiny electric cars like the 500 EV. I'm hoping to get one of those. The one fleet office that has one, that's the further away New York office that sends me some stuff every once in a while. They have one. They said they just can't send it to me because of the range. It would just take them far too long to get it to my house from New York, and I understand. So that one, I don't know if I'll get a chance to review. I was hoping to get invited to the media drive for that, and then that didn't happen. So I don't know if I'm going to ever review one, honestly. We'll see if the other press fleet office that sends me stuff, which is in DC, if they will try to send me one. I've been requesting it. They haven't had it yet to send me. But I think they now have one in their fleet. So I'm going to ask them again. It's probably not going to get any views, so I'm not going to be super bummed if I can't, even though I personally want to try out the 500E. But it's probably gonna be a waste of time from a business standpoint, because I'm sure, again, very few people are gonna watch it on this channel. But I'm trying to get one, but we will see if that works out. Omar says, is Chevy's plan for the electric Silverado to replace the ICE one in the future? I think eventually that's the idea, is, someday they will maybe drop the EV thing from those and just call it the Silverado. But, they've gone in a different track with the Silverado EV, for example, of, having the mid-gate thing that drops down and, these more radical things. But I think, yeah, ultimately, GM I think they've already invested a lot of money in keeping the V8s around and stuff. So I don't think it's going away. Even I would be surprised if it went away before 2035, and it probably will live beyond 2035. So we're already talking, a long time away. But potentially someday, maybe. But I think it's gonna be a long, long time, especially now as we see more and more people saying they want that choice of gas or EV and not rushing into the EV thing. I think that, yeah, you're not gonna have ICE go away for Chevy for a long time, if ever. We'll see again how the next couple of decades plays out here. And Omar says, is Chevy's plan for the electric Silverado? Sorry, I just read that one. Truck and Car Guy is talking about neither of his cars have Panda Black plastic. Oh, that's good. Beth would approve. Six Lick says, Matt, is it normal for interior plastics to scratch easily, or is it just a G86 problem? I feel like Gen 1 86 interior was far more scratch resistant than the current Gen 2. Sad life. I think it's just depends on the materials that are used. I think with a lot of the more premium materials, they're more painted and they're not just dipped like some of the others in the past, things like that. I think that's where you kind of open up some of that scratchy, nature. But I think it's just, a higher quality material that then needs to be babied a little bit more is kind of part of the problem, versus the hard, cheap plastic that, was super durable and all that, which is part of why some people like those cheaper interiors. But I don't remember I think my old BRZ was fine. I can only put like 33,000 miles on it, but yeah, I don't. But honestly, even like the G86 press cars I've had, I don't remember any like scratches really. So I don't know. I think it's just more of a modern phenomenon there for sure. because I feel like older stuff shouldn't have. But I mean, like, yeah, all the piano black stuff or anything that resembles that is just like a nightmare with all the scratches and all that. And Mike says, Matt, do you think it's odd that the new 4Runner and Tacoma will have 4-way lumbar, but the GX and Land Cruiser, which are more expensive, only offer 2-way lumbar? That didn't register in my brain, honestly. So thanks for pointing that out, because yeah, that's strange. I'm not sure why, especially the GX. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. There must be some explanation. Maybe it is a Japanese thing. I don't know, because Tacoma, I don't think they get Japan. I could be wrong. But it's like Tacoma's been a little bit more of an American thing as far as the way they set that up versus GX and Land Cruiser. So maybe there's some of that. I have no clue. That's my only guess as far as why that would be, but that is odd. And Double Strike says, on a different note, we just had a Porsche Club event, and we're going to be doing a track driving instructional event in 3 weeks. My first track time ever. That's awesome. Congrats. Hopefully you have a great time there. And hope the Taycan does well for you there. That'll be awesome. And I love track driving. I'm really glad I haven't done any this year aside from the one thing I did with Shell, which I'm hoping to have at least a reel. I don't know how many of you follow me on Instagram, but the deal with Shell, it's a sponsored reel, but I'm talking about my experience that I recently had with them, which, I mean, I guess it's not a big secret. I don't want to spoil the video, but at this point, I'm not even sure if I'm going to do a YouTube video on it, because I did it back in April, and it's been kind of a long process as far as getting everything approved and figured out and contracts and everything. But yeah, I was able to drive a very cool track experience, arguably the coolest track experience I've ever had so far, back in April. And so I'll be posting hopefully a reel this week. We will see. It might get pushed back. Hopefully this week, though. If you don't follow me on Instagram, follow if you want to see that. And it's pretty cool. So I'm going to see if I can work in a video. It's just, I'm so swamped with car reviews, but I'm hoping to maybe post up a little video of just, hey, here's this cool thing I did. And track driving videos never do well, so it'll probably get about 500 views. But it'd just be kind of cool to be like, I did this. Here's my experience. Just kind of share that experience with you guys. But we'll see if that ends up happening or not. Hyper Shadow says, Matt, aka formerly known as Super Ducks fan, how would you feel about an all-wheel drive 4-door electric Sportback Mustang having the Bullet name put on it? I expect you to say blasphemy. Yeah, I mean, I think Ford would be misguided to try and use the Bullet marketing on an EV. I mean, personally, yeah, I wouldn't be very excited about that either, honestly, because it just would be so far from the original. It's just, again, putting the Bullet name on it. At that point, it completely devalue the Bullet thing. So I wouldn't be really that excited about it. I would be excited about a 4-door Mustang, though, like a 4-door, electric Sportback thing, basically just like taking a Mach-E and smushing it a little bit, could be cool. I mean, the Mach-E that we have is great. We're pretty happy with it. But the Bullet thing, yeah, that would be also just the demographic that is excited about Bullet Mustangs, generally speaking, is not going to be an EV buyer. I would probably say you can count on one hand how many current Bullet owners would be excited about an electric vehicle in general. And then, that would be, they would sell 0 of them with the Bullet thing. The only people that would buy it would be people who don't know or care about the Bullet thing and just like, oh, I like the way it looks or whatever. And that would be it. But yeah, I wouldn't be running out to get that myself. A Good Stick says, how do you think Toyota will be affected by EVs? Their ICE cars are very reliable, but with EVs coming, there are less things to go wrong. Do you think Toyota's reputation for reliability will be valued? We will see, because I mean, the more and more surveys that come out as far as, there's a lot of these EVs are having early teething issues. And I think they are just that, early teething issues. I think all these things will get worked out, and in the end, they will be, yes, more reliable than their ICE counterparts. But, for Toyota, it's not just the mechanical stuff that is reliable. It's, they're pretty reliable with all their electronics. All the other stuff is also usually pretty solid. And that's something you can't always say for other companies where their CarPlay is a little glitchy or, things just don't work quite as well or quite as quickly or whatever. So I think there's those ways that Toyota can, have their different reputation as well. And again, this is also a question that I don't think is going to be a problem for Toyota again until we're talking, the 2040s or something. They're doing the EVs and they're going to, phase that in here, fairly soon, I think. But they still are going to have a long time of people, having their gas stuff and, enjoying that reliability. And then even those people in 10 years, then switching to an EV, they're still going to carry that reputation through to those vehicles as long as they don't drop the ball on them. And that will continue to be just a legacy thing. I think that over the course of time, it'll be almost, I think, the same thing as if you think of with BMW with the ultimate driving machine or something like that, where it's like a marketing thing almost that like, is it the ultimate driving machine anymore? That's probably debatable, especially when you see something like the new M5 and how much it weighs and stuff. But it's just those types of things that even for people who aren't car people, like those types of phrases and marketing are just so ingrained in their thinking that they're like, people see BMW and they think, oh, that's going to be a good driving car. Same way, you see a Toyota, like, oh, well, that's going to be more reliable than the other one, even if they're using similar components or they're all EVs or whatever. I think that Toyota's reputation is so strong in that regard that even whenever we're in a time where potentially reliability is something that is a complete equal level playing field and everything is 100% perfect with reliability, which I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, but even if we do, you're still going to have I had a RAV4 back in 2030 and it was so reliable, and so I'm going to go for the Toyota EV. And you'll have that kind of stuff, in 50 years, I think, even, that will last a long time, again, unless there's some real major ball dropping that's happening as far as them dropping the ball on that stuff. It's probably a poor choice of words, but you get what I'm saying. So that's I think going to stick with them, for a very, very long time. And let me see. B. Mitchell says, double strike, just remember to learn technique over trying to go fast. When you gain good technique, speed will come. Absolutely. Great advice. And like even the instructor was telling me when I was doing this driving in April, and I mean, this is something I've heard a lot, I've done a lot of driving schools at this point, but it's always a lot of the stuff that looks slow is actually fast and that doesn't maybe feel fast. But if you're setting yourself up for the corners, right, you're going to have faster corner exit, and you will have faster lap times, even if it seems like you're not going into the corner as hard as you maybe think you should be or wanting to. There's just those types of things where things that are sometimes counterintuitive, are things that end up again really benefiting you. And I know like the really mind-blowing thing for me once I started doing more and more of these driving schools was just weight transfer and the power of weight transfer and how that can really work for you or work against you and your goals around the track. And so just really be mindful of weight transfer. I'm sure you have a pretty good grasp of that already, but that's all exaggerated on track at higher speeds, higher Gs. So those are the types of things that, you're more aware of and you should pay more attention to is, why, not to request more steering if you are, adding in power or whatever. And, the whole, I'm sure you've seen the whole, idea of like the string attached to the gas pedal and the steering wheel. The more you're turning, the less gas you should be giving it. And then as you straighten out, then you work in the gas more and, kind of having that kind of a mentality as far as your relationship of the throttle to the, steering wheel and things like that. So there's, again, I'm sure your instructors will have a lot of great advice for you as well on dealing specifically with the Taycan and its unique characteristics. But yeah, it'll be great. I think going on track is one of the best things you can do for anybody, even if you're a non-enthusiast, just to be aware of what your car is capable of, what you're capable of, and just being in situations that maybe you normally wouldn't be in that will prepare you for other potential emergency maneuvers and things like that you have to do in the future. And it's great. So yeah, highly recommend track driving. It's a ton of fun too. And let me see. Sixlick says, if you take a fingernail and lightly go across the center console in the GRD6 next to the buttons, it'll leave a mark. Interesting. He says, it's terrible. At this point, I've learned it's just an expendable product and out of my control. That's interesting. That it just scratches that easily. I think that's just, yeah, I think that's if I remember correctly, it's just a painted part. I think the painting versus the dipped stuff or just stuff that is just flat, dyed plastic is what kind of gets, that stuff into trouble. But yeah, it's not the best choice for interior materials. I think there's ways you can do nicely dipped stuff or covered stuff that doesn't scratch super easily like that, but painted surfaces just, not great on high touch point areas. And let me see. He also double strikes says he's hoping the decades of racing experience in Gran Turismo will somehow translate. I mean, yeah, if you have the mechanics and the basics down, that certainly helps. But it's, I think it definitely, though, it is so once the stakes are so much higher, if it is you physically there and it's your car and all that, it definitely raises those stakes. It makes you reconsider things you wouldn't have thought about in Gran Turismo. And obviously you're going to be a lot bolder in a video game. So, but it never hurts to practice though, as far as, the basics and doing all that in the game. And Cam Jam says, I like the new Ruelto, but I think I would take an Aventador SVJ with the violent launch and especially the shifts. Yeah, I haven't really seen too much coverage on the Ruelto. Did they do first drives on that already? I'm sure they did. I just must have missed the initial wave of like European reviews on that. But I'm hoping that Ruelto's good. It seemed pretty promising, but Aventadors are, they're definitely very magical. Since like my poster Lamborghini was the Murcielago, that still is like the one I would love to have someday. And honestly, it doesn't even need to be like the SV. I'd be happy with a regular Murcielago, which is another one that I do have up there. I actually have two of them. I have the Roadster and the Coupe, and still love those. Just like the bat wings, that came up in the back of those, just so cool. But Mike says 4Runner is going to be built in the same Japanese plant that the GX and Land Cruiser are built in. Interesting. But is 4Runner sold in Japan? I think it is, right? So yeah, that wouldn't explain the lumbar thing. I'm not sure. That's a good question. I'm hopefully going to be going on future Toyota events. So the next one I go on, I will. Like it's something I can ask because I'm hoping to drive 4Runner at some point. And so when I do, I can ask them about that. I'll have to try and remember that question. I'll have to write that down and make sure I ask them that because that's a good question for sure. I want to know the answer to that now too. And two, thanks for joining in. A member for 25 months too. He says two is back. Say the Candyman 3 times and he appears. When Matt said he was remodeling the basement, I didn't know he meant a new dungeon wing. Man, I must have buried you under the floor there or something. It's been a while, but hope you're doing well too. Thanks for stopping by and happy to see that hopefully you're doing well. And and glad to see that you're out there still kicking and still doing your thing. That's great. And thanks for stopping by and happy to see you here. And thank you again for your support for 25 months now, too. Hopefully you like the new little badging there that we did for the more than 2-year members here. And let me see. So B. Mitchell says, then again, my first track event / driving school was on Der Nürburgring. Ruined for life that day. I bet, man, that is a hell of a way to break in your track driving V card there. That is that's wild, man. I've never driven on Nürburgring. That is one I'm still hoping to hit someday. But that must have been crazy because they call it the green hell for a reason. That I would have been sweating bullets there driving anything on the Nürburgring that for your first track driving experience. Honestly, that's probably terrifying. I don't know if I would have picked that myself, but that's impressive that you went for that. That is crazy. And Trunk Car Guy says they can make cars as reliable as possible. There will still be stupid owners who find a way to break them. That's true. Very good point. And he says we're trying to put gas in an EV. Yeah, I'm sure that has already happened at some point and will continue to happen in the future. Mike says, if you were to make a prediction for new car sales percentage-wise being EV in 2030, what would you predict? Interesting. I mean, I'd say as far as like US sales goes, again, it looks like we're going to be hitting probably 10% by the end of this year. Again, if Equinox can actually be built in reasonable numbers, and if the Toyota, it really just comes down to if everyone follows the plans that they're planning on as far as the battery innovations, as far as the infrastructure innovations, if knowing what we know now about the plans, if everyone continues with those, which is a big if now with, the new lack of power for the EPA and, just every single climate thing trying to be undercut left and right. But assuming those, just again, hypothetical, which I think is a very unlikely hypothetical at this point, but if things actually stay the way they are and, all that stuff continues to be able to be a thing, with the current trajectory, I would say my prediction, again, if Equinox actually does as well as I'm thinking it will, and if the Toyota EVs come in with their claimed, idea of 600 miles of range or something by 2026, if we start to get those types of things and we get the battery advancements that I'm expecting us to get, I would say my estimate, it's going to have to also depend on how things elsewhere in the world, play out, and as far as how the economy is doing over the next 6 years here, things like this. There's a lot of unknowns that are so hard to predict. Like, yeah, I won't get political, but like, there is a lot of unknowns. I think more unknowns for this decade than possibly we've ever had in the history of our country. But I mean, I have no clue. But if we just put all that stuff aside and we look at the current trajectory and we look at what's on the horizon for EVs, potentially, I could see us getting to close to 50% by 2030, I think, at least as far as new car sales. Obviously, as far as the cars that are actually on the road, the average car is 12.6 years old. So if 50% of new vehicles sold in 2030 are EVs, you give them 12 and a half more years to become an affordable used car for someone that's driving the average age vehicle on the road right now of 12.6 years. So you add, we're talking 2042, 2043, before you get 50% of the cars on the road being, EVs, even if we hit that 50% market new, in 2030. So that's kind of where I'm guessing. This is why, again, this was never anything that was mandated to happen overnight or anything that was like this gloom and doom thing. It's going to take a while, but it sounds like even that's too fast for a lot of people. So maybe we'll add an extra 50 years onto the transition, and we'll we will see what happens as far as that. But yeah, so that would be my guess. But again, these days I have no clue what's gonna happen even in the next 6 months. To be completely honest, it's hard to predict. So we will see. It'll be very, very interesting end of this year and an interesting 2025. But anyway, the Good Stick says, I see we're 2 hours and 5 minutes. I realized we're already over time, but let me try and wrap up the last few member questions here, and then I will be headed out here for the night. But let me see. Good Stick says Hellcats have become crowd killers even more so than Mustangs, as the people in Hellcats suffer from severe skull issue. Yeah, Hellcats, it seems like there is unfortunately a growing stigma with those that I think has kind of overshadowed the Mustang memes of years past. It's although I do see Mustangs and Camaros at takeovers and stuff like that too, but it definitely seems like the Mopar stuff is more popular in those kind of areas. And Trenton Car Guy says, I'm going to try to start saving up to go to a local racing school here. It's going to just take a while with my low wages. Yeah, and it's a shame that there's not more free driver education stuff, because I really feel like that would just benefit all of society in general. But yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate that driving school stuff is so expensive. It really is, because I would do more track days as well if it was something that was, cheaper, and especially track insurance is something that I like having, and it'd be nice if that was reasonably priced, but it's like everything is so expensive, in addition to brake pads being expensive, and going through pads and tires and other wear components so much quicker when you do track driving and stuff. It's an expensive hobby for sure. So it's certainly a very privileged position to be in, to be able to tear up a car on a track. But it is fantastic if it's something you can afford, for sure. And two, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, Matt, both SWF and I are escaped the basement. Who built your locks? The same team who built the Tundra V6. Yep. There's some issues there on the line with those locks, I suppose. But I'm happy to see you were able to escape and are able to join us here tonight. And thanks for bringing back the basement jokes too. And thank you again for the super chat and for hanging out here. All right, last few questions here. Let me see. Hyper Shadow says, I know people send you their nice cars, but I was thinking about sending a pic of my little crap box. It's just a little gray 2007 Mazda 3 hatchback. Old but fun little car. Both speakers, though. That's great. And, member car of the week, yeah, if that has been holding any of you back, member car of the week was never supposed to be like a, wow, like I have the best car ever or anything. It's just showing what everyone has out there, which is really cool. I would love to show your 2007 Mazda 3. Again, I'm not going for maximum wow effect with these posts. It's just showing, kind of the community we have and the cool things that people have done with their vehicles and the choices people have made that, might be different than what other people have made, and just kind of showing the diversity of the member group here that we have and the cool cars that you have. And even if it's, not the coolest car in the world, just it's so cool to see. I'm also just personally curious what everyone drives. I like checking out other people's cars, like at car shows and things like that. So, anything you have, even if it's a complete turd, be like, hey, look, someone's enjoying driving their, whatever it is, their Yugo or whatever. Like, cool. Like, there's no judgment. There's no nothing. It's all about all love, all just showing off what we all have that we're working with. If it's got four wheels and it's got a steering wheel and pedals, it can be fun, and so that's what it's all about. But Hyper Shadow says, has anyone ever sent in their pics of their not so nice cars? I mean, yeah, I've posted every one of the cars that has been sent in to me from the members for a member car of the week. So everything that's on the member post there on the page are all the ones that I've been sent. So I post them all. I'm not selective. I'm not like picky. I will literally post every single one I get. And Jewel says, hey, Matt, what are your thoughts on California introducing speed limiters in new cars? So I mentioned this a little bit. I don't know if that was before or after this comment came in. It says, do you also think it would be beneficial for drivers to experience full ABS stops on their car to prepare them? That would be absolutely great. Just any kind of emergency situation. I think especially places that get snow would be great for everyone to go in a parking lot and just intentionally make your car slide so you know what to expect, what it does, how you can handle that. I think there's a lot of racetracks do a snow driving school. Again, something that's expensive, but if you can afford it, it's great. I'm intending to hopefully send my daughter when she's driving age to driving schools, and they have a snow one for teenagers, that's just like, hey, you hit a patch of ice in this, simulated racetrack kind of scenario, whatever, like catch it, ride the drift, work it out and figure it out, and just like teaching those types of things, just safety stuff. We're not trying to go fast here. It's just, safety stuff. And I think, yeah, it'd be great. As far as the speed limiters that California is introducing, I think that a speed limiter, if it's GPS activated and is a sliding scale or something, could, make some sense. Because I think like speed limiters potentially, if you're just talking about like a top speed limiter, wouldn't help you in a low speed zone. If someone's doing 100 miles an hour through a school zone or something, like, I would want that to have an even super lower, speed limiter. So I think speed limiters potentially could be good. I know, again, a lot of people will get all upset about, any limitations to anything they want to do. But, I think most of us are responsible drivers, and would you actually be limited? Would you ever hit that limiter? But if it's limiting the few nuts out there that are doing 150 miles an hour through intersections and killing people, then yeah, like I'm for that. I think that there can be common sense things. I don't think that you need to take your car out and do a top speed run. I mean, I can understand doing it in the middle of the night and there's no one around or whatever, but like, again, like we were saying earlier, take that stuff on the track, and you have more fun there. You don't have to worry about getting pulled over. You don't have to worry about anything. You know what you're doing. You have people guiding you, training you, making sure you're doing everything safely so you don't mess your car up, you don't mess yourself up. It's just, again, it's not cheap to go to the track, so I understand that. But again, maybe it's just my older age or just being a dad or a family man now or whatever. But I feel like Unfortunately, cars have gotten really fast, and they are a lot more deadly than they used to be. Obviously, cars have always been deadly, but like when you now are talking about every single EV having 0 to 60s in 4 seconds, when you have, the average muscle car having 500 or more horsepower, those types of things, in the wrong hands can be bad news. Doesn't mean it has to ruin it for everybody, but I think, again, I enjoyed my Bullet. I never topped it out or anything, but I still had fun with it. You don't have to do triple digits to have fun. So I feel like there can be a reasonable common ground that isn't full draconian, end of the world kind of limits that just make everyone that's an enthusiast want to pull their hair out. But I think there can be some common sense, hopefully relatively common ground things to get things to a reasonable limit. And some companies are going to do this voluntarily. And that's, I think, another area where I think maybe it's a better way to go about it, is having car companies choose that for themselves. Like Volvo, all their new cars, I think, have a limiter now of like 105 or something. So, I think that could be another thing, of just have the choice be the consumer's choice. But but then you're going to have companies like Dodge that will never do that, so then it's like, no Volvo owners doing 150 through an intersection, so it's like, it's a nice intention of Volvo to, say, well, we're going to limit our stuff, but like no Volvo drivers doing triple digits anyway. So it's like, the stuff that needs the limiters more, I think, is the stuff that probably wouldn't get them voluntarily. So that's where the regulations can be helpful. But again, it's a tricky thing and an unpopular thing to try and figure out. So it's hard for me to say, I'd say, but I think that there could be something, that could be worked out, hopefully. But let me see. So last few questions here. Jules also asking, do you think it will encourage new drivers to learn manuals if there was a small difference in the issued driver's licenses? I know this is a thing in some countries. Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of countries do have that differentiation, or at least they did. I think that manuals are such a niche thing now that I think that ship has sailed a long time ago as far as that opportunity on our licenses. What I would love to see, not a transmission thing, but I would just love to see a higher degree of testing for, well, in general, I think just driver's licenses are way too easy to get already in the States. If you have a Pulse, you can basically get a driver's license. But, I think that there needs to be a higher level of testing in general, but then I think it would be great to have higher levels of licenses and then raise the speed limits for those people on a separate HOV kind of lane or something, where you have that higher licensing, you're off in a separate divided lane or something, and you get 20 mile per hour higher speed limit or something like that, and reward that, and maybe make that license cost a little bit extra, so you have a way of subsidizing those roads that would need to be built or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's a pie in the sky, unrealistic kind of idea, but I would love to see something, like that, where you have levels of driver skill that is reflected. Maybe you have a little sticker on your car, so, you have a little more leeway from cops or something. I don't know, because it just, again, comes down to how responsible you are, not just your skill. But, it'd be nice to see some levels of driver's licenses and have, because every driver isn't equal in their skill. And I feel like having some kind of differentiation would kind of could potentially be helpful. But again, that would be a very complicated thing to try and work out, but it would be nice to have something like that. And B. Mitchell says, actually, the BMW clubs Europa did the rings and sections. It was just a matter of putting all the sections together. Had a new BMW 318 IS to drive for it. Also helped, had more suspension than power. That's awesome. That must have been a great experience. That's super cool. Man, that would have been so fun. Mike says, I would have guessed 35% by 2030 for new car sales. Yeah, that could be a very good bet as well. I still see an exponential rise happening as we have drastically improved infrastructure, drastically improved batteries, and just the technology improves really fast, like we've seen with tech and stuff. I think we'll see that same kind of thing with the same, leaps we've seen with smartphones, with storage, with memory. I remember buying a 512 megabyte memory stick for my Sony PSP back in the day, and that was like, I think like $65 or something for like a 512 megabyte, not gigabyte, 512 megabyte card. I'm like, oh man, I got so much memory here. And then, and that was, what was that, 15, 20 years ago? And now, they don't even make, I don't think 512 megabyte cards anymore. And even I just picked up the other day, just because I needed a new memory card, 64 gigs for what, like $10 or something. I feel like you're going to see that kind of thing with batteries and battery tech now, as all these billions of dollars are pouring in. If they continue to pour in, you'll have that same transition where batteries get cheap, they're plentiful, they have huge range, super quick recharge. That's where we can get to if we keep up with this innovation. And then that's when you have all those concerns drop away. If cost parity is there, if range is there, infrastructure is there, then I think a lot of people would be happy to say goodbye to oil changes and fill ups and all that stuff. So, but we'll see. Yeah, like I said, the way things are going now, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw EV adoption reverse and go to zero in the next 6 years, depending on how things play out. So we'll see. But let me see. Truck and Car Guy says average car is 12.6 years. Laughs owning a 21-year-old and a 17-year-old car. Nice. Yeah. Well, you are definitely helping extend that average out, which is cool. All right. Yeah. Brian says have a good week. And so does Hyper Shadow there. He says have a great one. Matthias Maran Elias. I know that's secretly your real name. That would be a much cooler name for sure. That should be my next stage name or something. But V Mitchell, some of my best cars have been crap boxes. Yeah, I feel like there's an unappreciated thing about crap boxes, just being able to drive them hard, not having to worry about them, and just being able to beat on something like that sometimes can be fun. All right, so I see Jared, thanks. I just got your email. I just pushed it through here for your member car of the week, so we will have one tomorrow here. Thanks, Jared, for sending yours in. And hopefully we can do more member car of the week here going forward. And Immutable Do, I see, says he's got a 23 Mazda 3. So nice. They got the new one there at the 6-speed. That's awesome. And a Triumph Bonneville. Well, feel free to send your pictures in if you want, Immutable Do, and on any email or whatever. And be happy to show off your stuff as well. And Jewel says, a follow-up on the speed limiter question. The current suggestion from California, I've heard, is 10 above the posted limit. And yes, it's supposed to be GPS activated. It prompts you, not limits you per se. Well, I think most new cars these days have the speed limit recognition stuff. So whether that's something they want to have mandated in cars, is that recognition of, hey, you're doing this speeding or whatever. Like, I think that's something people could probably live with. But again, I don't think that the drunk driver that's completely blasted out of their mind doing 150 through an intersection, like that's not going to stop them. So like, that's a good first step. But, I feel like, especially for people that are repeat offenders, that could be something maybe as like a court ordered thing, as like once you have one really bad speeding ticket, or once you have one really poor judgment call or a couple poor judgment calls, then it's like, okay, well, now we're putting a speed limiter on your car. Maybe that's a better way to do it. I don't know, but very complicated question, I'm sure, as far as how to put that all together. But Truck and Car Guy says, as a CDL holder, the sheer stupidity I've seen from others behind the wheel is mind-boggling. I'm sure you've seen it all and then some, way more than most of us have, with all the miles I'm sure you've racked up over the years. But it's crazy out there. Just says those PS2 memory cards are criminally overpriced. Yeah, those too. I still have one of my old PS1 ones sitting over there too, the green see-through ones. Good times. I'm so sentimental for the 90s and the 2000s. But anyway, Mike says, yeah, there's going to be a large curve eventually, but I kind of expected the curve to already have happened. Like, if you would have asked me in 2018, I would have said 30% by 2024. Yeah, I think that the thing that threw everyone off, this has been my last little tangent here, is, with EVs, everyone was expecting there to be this consistent line. Well, a lot of people, I think a lot of people also expected what we're seeing now, which is that, like I've said this a few times, so apologies if this is a repeat, but, there's always going to be the initial, adoption curve, like any new tech. I'm like, ooh, this is the new thing. I want to have the new high-tech thing. I'm going to grab it. And then they all have their cool new stuff. They already have their first one in the neighborhood or whatever. And then, convincing everyone else to go for it takes a while. We see this every year with iPhone sales, things like that. You have the early adopters that's, it's sold out until, the next 2 months. Oh man, I have to wait 2 months for my pre-order or whatever. And you have that whole group of people that are, antsy to get it immediately. And then, Black Friday hits, or you see Christmas deals, or especially the following year, buy one, get one free. And they start giving away and they're throwing them at you if you walk in the store and say hello. And they're like, here's an iPhone. And, so then they get to that point later in the product cycle. And that's the natural curve every year is it's the hottest thing in October, November. And then, December, you get Christmas deals and stuff. And then it's going to be the same thing with cars. So we just saw the early adopter phase of like, ooh, look at all these shiny new EVs. Let's hurry up and buy them. Now those people already have them. And they're like, okay, well, my car should last me a few years, so I'm not going to buy a new one right now. And so now it's convincing the masses to want to deal with the current infrastructure, deal with the current limitations. And that's a harder sell for a lot of people than it is for the early adopters who jumped at that and jumped that acceptance rate up really quickly right off the bat. And that was always what most people were expecting, is we were going to have the sidelines people that are going to need some extra coaxing, whether it's the big discounts that we're seeing, which everyone thinks is like this weird thing, like as if discounts weren't a thing before, but this like, oh, we have to discount everything. Like the discounts were always something I was expecting to see to get those people to, consider this. And you're going to still have people that just aren't comfortable with them. And so you're going to have to have the time to wait for this to, develop, for those people to then have their complaints addressed and resolved. And then, they will, again, be happy to jump in. I don't think anyone enjoys paying for oil changes. No one enjoys filling up with gas, in the middle of winter. So I think that from a, ideological standpoint, people don't have any issues with it. It's just, again, I'm worried about my range, or I'm worried about, this battery not lasting, or whatever the case is. Once those complaints and those concerns are, settled, then the adoption will happen on its own very easily, I think. So, again, to me, this isn't like this massive shift. And maybe some car companies got a little too excited and thought maybe we weren't going to see any kind of slowdowns. But if you look at some of the analyst stuff from a few years back, they were predicting this kind of a curve and this kind of a hesitation for a few years. And this is, again, common in any other, tech kind of thing or any other new product that comes out. And so I haven't lost the faith in EVs still being the future. We will see, again, how it plays out and, how regulations and stuff affect that. But I still think that is eventually where we will head, whether that's in the next 12 years or if that's, sometime later, remains to be seen. But anyway, Spy Harpy says, have a great week. Thanks for the live chat. Always fun to hang out on here on the weekends. Likewise, if you guys had a great week, have a great week here coming up. And thanks for hanging out here. And yeah, sorry for anyone else, by the way, who didn't get their question answered. If you're not a member or didn't do a super chat or whatever, I'm always also happy to answer questions on social media, things like that. So definitely, if you have a question you really want to have answered, feel free to send me a message on Facebook, on, email, whatever you want to do. And I'll be happy to answer your question once I can, get around to it here in the next few days. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Have a great week. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Stay tuned for some more stuff. Since it's mostly members in here, I will say that, stay tuned for E-Ray coming tomorrow, probably tomorrow, late afternoon or evening, Corvette E-Ray, which obviously is going to be a very fun one. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, thank you all very much. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great week. Take care.